only ones fighting for the truth of what happened to John O'Keefe. And me and my family and my attorneys and my team have marshaled every resource to get to the truth. It just feels like no one else wants it.
And Karen, just to be clear, you didn't do it.
We know who did it, Steve. We know. And we know who spearheaded this cover-up. You all know.
Yes, we do.
And no, she didn't do it. No, she didn't do it. This is an innocent woman. She didn't do it.
I tried to save his life. I tried to save his life at 6 in the morning. I was covered in his blood. I was the only one trying to save his life.
Why'd you admit to it?
She didn't admit to it. She didn't admit to anything close to that. Nothing close to that. And you should know that.
That was like 3 or 4 times she said it.
No, she didn't.
That's not true.
She asked a question.
It makes absolutely no sense. That is the Commonwealth grasping at straws. If it walks like a duck and talks like a duck, it's a duck.
We have the 8 letters. We've seen them. We've read them. We are using them. The genie cannot be put back in the bottle.
Yeah, LTL true crime, we going deep in the dark. Yeah, peeling back the layers, expose the hidden mark. From the streets to the alleys where the secrets lie, getting into minds of the wicked, no alibi. LTL true crime, unraveling the web of evil. No stone left unturned, we dive into the pond. Yeah, we digging up the dirt, bringing justice to the crime. LTL true crime, unveiling dark realities every time. Yeah, LTL true crime, we going deep in the dark. Peeling back the layers, exposed the hidden mark. From the streets to the alleys where the secrets lie, getting into minds of the wicked, no alibi. LTL true crime, go. We don't get live in the shine, but then I'm not talking about it in the soul. I could go place in your phone. No punctuation lie. Good punctuation low. We better hit that. Yeah, we hit that, hit that. Better do what in the boats. Hey, I think they'll true crime. I'm done with dark realities every time. This is yeah, I think they'll true crime. I'm done with dark realities every time. Yeah, LTL true crime. We going deep in the dark. Yeah, peeling back the layers, expose the hidden mark. From the streets to the alleys where the secrets lie, getting into minds of the wicked, no alibi. LTL true crime. We going deep in the dark. Yeah, peeling back the layers, expose the hidden mark. From the streets to the alleys where the secrets lie, getting into minds of the wicked, no alibi. LTL true crime, we going deep in the dark. Yeah, peeling back the layers, expose the hidden mark. From the streets to the alleys where the secrets lie, getting into minds of the wicked, no alibi.
Well, here we are, and welcome back, everybody, to LTL True Crime. It is Wednesday, February 14th, and happy Valentine's Day to all of you out there. I'm home. I'm streaming. Tom's with me. We're hanging out. Dave's going to be joining us from Unsafe Spaces a little while. He's out with his other half. They were having a dinner, and he's going to join us probably just past 9 o'clock. So Tom and I said, well, what the hell? We'll fire this bee up, get it going, get it rolling, and, talk about everybody scrambling, like, what the hell is going on? But I think we're going to come to a rational point here of what we think is going on tomorrow. But I want to welcome Tom. Thanks for joining me again. How are you?
I'm doing great. Happy Valentine's Day to everybody. Hope everyone had a safe day and still here,
We're all here. We're all here. And happy Valentine's Day. Absolutely, everybody. Hopefully everybody had an amazing day. So what we're gonna do here to just kind of kick the show off until Dave can join us is we're gonna do a little bit of review. There's been some news and some updates that happened in the state of Massachusetts today. I want to talk a little bit about that. Josh Levy again was very busy. I would have to say that I wish that the headline on the report that we're going to read is Karen Reed is free, but we don't know. we have a little bit of speculation of what might happen tomorrow. But the first thing I do want to talk about, there was a major event, unfortunately, at the Chiefs parade today. And I want to bring this article up really quick. Extremely sad. I know Dave from Unsafe Spaces talked a little bit about this earlier. I caught wind of it just as I was leaving work today. I don't know all the full details, but I want to send out all my condolences to everybody down there at the Chiefs Super Bowl parade today. This is awful. It's a tragedy. I heard there was a lot of children that were involved in this gunfire. I mean, you can only imagine there's probably, over 100, I would say over a couple 100,000 people down there today. And
Can you imagine just you go to a Patriots like celebration and someone starts shooting? I mean, think about that. Stop and look around you. You have kids, young people, old people, people middle, and some idiot with a gun. It's unnecessary. It really is unnecessary. There's no need for this type of violence. It just
yeah.
it just isn't. There's no need
And
and there's no words for it. You can't. What do you say to that? Seriously.
Yeah, and this is what I talk about, and I talk about on my streams all the time. Everybody, when you are out and you are about, you need to be diligent and aware of your surroundings. You need to know who is around you, what is going on around you, and where are your exit points.
Exits.
I've always said that, or a place that you can get in cover if something like this happens. And unfortunately, we live in a society today of where things like this happen. Now, granted, I've talked about this before. I'm a Second Amendment advocate. I believe that everybody should have the right to bear arms, but there's proper things to go through all of that. I don't know all of the answers to all this stuff, so I'm not going to get into the politics of it. Everybody in the chat might have different opinions on this, and it's perfectly fine.
Well, if that was Texas, right?
I wouldn't have done it there.
No. If that was Texas, what would be the end result?
Probably a lot of people armed and shooting back.
There would be less injuries, wouldn't there?
Yeah, I think so.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, and that's a perfect example of why the gun laws are there for the people, right? Think of how if even one person had a gun and took that guy out before he could shoot anybody else, that's the reason we have that.
Yeah, and there was a situation, I think it was either Florida or it could have been in Texas, where just recently in the last 6 months, I think there was a mall shooter down there, and some guy
great
was
shot
carrying and took him, neutralized the threat. So,
and again, people that are going to carry a gun are usually really proficient with it,
Yeah.
And they're the ones you want to have the gun if they know how to use the gun. That what you're referring to, that one kid took the shot.
Yeah.
You see how far away it was?
Yeah, it was far.
Dude, I couldn't make that shot. And he hit consecutive body shots on the shooter.
Yeah.
So that's congrats to him. He's again, one person combating. He took he put his life on the line for everybody else.
Yeah, I saw some of the things on Twitter. I saw the crowds running. I saw some of the broadcasts that were broadcasting it and talking about it. Just a complete horrible tragedy. And again, my condolences.
This is just as bad.
Go out to everybody. So yeah, like I was saying, U.S. Attorney's Office here in excuse me, Massachusetts, District of Massachusetts, Josh Levy, again, busy. He Street gang members and associates charged in federal sweep. This was released today. So Boston, over 40 members and associates of the He Street gang in Boston were charged today in federal court in Boston with racketeering, conspiracy, drug trafficking, firearms, wire fraud, financial frauds, including COVID fraud, and following a 2-year investigation into gang violence. And this goes back to the 80s. I think what I was reading, formed in the 80s and essentially have been following this historical gang. And Levy really jumping out, being tough on crime here. I think Tom was talking to me a little. What were you talking to me a little bit about this backstage, Tom? What you had to fill me in on, that I forget what you were talking about this particular situation, and it slipped my mind.
Yeah, I mean, this is Jamaica Plain, right? And look at what they got these guys on. One guy had submitted um, unemployment assistance.
Oh, that's what you're talking
in,
about.
like,
Yeah, in
9
different
different
states.
states.
Yeah.
One of them was like North Dakota or something, and one was like Puerto Rico, and I guess they paid out. So that's what they're talking about. I mean, 9 different states for COVID relief,
Yeah.
and I mean, that's organized crime. If you're able to do that, think about what it takes to do that in just the paperwork. Who does all that, right?
Sure. And there was a lot of that going on during the COVID relief stuff too. I mean, a lot of stuff. I mean,
Mhm.
I remember this name and I have it highlighted, the Mission Hill Gang. I remember my parents talking about that. You know, I remember my parents
Let's
talking
go back.
about all of
Do
that.
you remember who was tied to that Mission Hill gang? Do you remember? Let's talk about that, Brian. Let's
Yeah,
back
go ahead.
up. Who's tied to the Mission Hill gang?
That's not Whitey Bulger, is it?
Sure is, my friend.
Yeah.
So
And like what
are
I
you
like to
telling me
say, I
they're
got
still cleaning up after him? Is that what you're telling me here?
what's that?
They're still cleaning up after him. Is
Yeah.
that what you're saying? That this whole
Yeah.
organized crime was still going?
And
That's kind of funny. I said something about that, didn't I? It's funny that how that works.
And I gotta say this too, because I always go back to the Turtle Boy stream when he's streaming with Janetti, and he goes, "Yeah, who knew that fucking Stephen the Rifleman Fleming was a gangster?"
Yeah.
So yeah, Mission Hill. I mean,
Yeah.
Whitey Bulger. It's just
And these are
crazy.
real gangs. Just so
Oh yeah,
no, this is legit.
very well
stuff.
organized crime.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Mission Hill Gang, the H Block Gang, it has a lot of ties to all of that. Says the charge of RICO conspiracy provides sentence up to 20 years in prison, 3 years of supervised release, and a fine of $250,000. They essentially go through all the charges here, all the names here as well. Conspiracy, Hyde Park, Mattapan, Boston. Bad dudes, you know, really bad guys, and people that we don't need on our streets. I'm glad that this has all been taken in, and you know, hopefully,
Distributor fentanyl, drug trafficking.
yeah,
I mean, Hobbs Act, conspiracy, wire fraud. I mean, this is legit stuff.
yeah, and conspiracy to distribute and possess with an intent to distribute, control something. And this is all fentanyl and stuff like that. So people we just don't need on our streets. You know, people that need to be wiped up and put away for a long, long time.
Maine.
Yeah.
Connecticut.
Maine,
Brockton.
Yep.
Hyde Park.
So, I mean, this is multi-state, and that's why the feds probably got involved in all this. It's a multi-state, you know, investigation. That's
Now,
usually when they
do you
jump
think
in.
they have cell phone data for all these people? Would you say?
I'd probably say yeah.
So, you know, all we got to do is take some white out and change the names, and we're good to go.
Right.
Next.
All right. Well, great opener. And then what we're gonna do now, we'll have a little time before Dave jumps in with us, and we'll hang out here. But what I want to do, and what I always like to do, is go back when we're getting ready to have a hearing, just kind of go back and review the last hearing that we had. So Karen's last hearing was about a month ago, January 5th, 2024. We're going to play that up. We'll play through it so it gives everybody a little bit of refresher. I know tomorrow, Tom will be out there streaming live as always. My plan is I'm going to show up, probably shoot some video before I go in, and then I'm actually going to go in and sit in court tomorrow. So I won't be outside because I want to be in the courtroom. And then when I come out, hopefully I can get out in time to catch Karen and her team leaving. But I know Tom will be out there streaming, of course. So, all right, Tom, anything you want to add or before we start this, or?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
You know, at the beginning of your opening, where Karen is on the stairs, can you play that one part again with her speaking?
Yeah, I already know what you're going to talk about. I'll play it, and then I'm going to say, I play it, and then I go, I know what you're going to talk about, and I'll say what I think you were going to talk about. And if I'm right, I'm right. You tell me I'm right. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. And you can.
Something hit me different tonight when I watched.
Right, let's play it.
Said it feels we're the only ones fighting for the truth of what happened to John O'Keefe. And me and my family and my attorneys and my team have marshaled every resource to get to the truth. It just feels like no one else wants it.
And Karen, just to be clear, you didn't do it.
We know who did it, Steve. We know. And we know who spearheaded this cover-up. You all know.
Yes, we do.
And no, she didn't do it. No, she didn't do it. This is an innocent woman. She didn't do it.
I tried to save his life. I tried to save his life at 6 in the morning. I was covered in his blood. I was the only one trying to save his life.
Why'd you admit to it?
She didn't admit to it. She didn't admit to anything close to that. Nothing close to that. And you should know that.
That was like 3 or 4 times she said it.
No,
No,
she didn't.
that's not true.
She asked a question.
It makes absolutely no sense.
Do you want me to tell you what I think you're going to talk about?
Please, let's see.
I think if you watch the captions down below, when she says, I had his blood on me, it's not there in the captions. And she said, I have his blood all over me. If you had someone's blood all over you, then that would mean that the body was warm and it wasn't out there for 6 hours, right?
It couldn't have been.
I
It's an
know.
impossibility. It doesn't work like that.
Amen, brother.
She
I
said
know.
it right there on the court steps, dude.
She said it right there.
And it's crystal clear. And I heard it, and I heard it again. But then tonight was different. I heard something different tonight. If you hear what she says, it's 100% sincerity, and there's nothing but sincerity in her voice.
Mm-hmm.
Just
And
like
she looks right at the reporter and gives him the dead stare eye and goes, we know who did it, Steve.
Just like the 911 call. You can't fake that, plan it, act it, nothing. That's what happens. Like, and it's uncontrollable. You don't, and again, that's why they sent her away, because you become uncontrollable. Your brain can't process it. Things don't compute, and it doesn't. So yeah. And they let her drive away like that. Yeah, I'm all set. I don't need to know anything else. I'm good.
You know what I found a little weird too? That all of these mentions of her in the documents, that she made all these statements that she was going to kill herself. I don't see that.
But at the same time, she could have been thinking something, and coming out her mouth could have been different. She short circuits like that. When you have a mental issue like that, it doesn't compute. Think of this. Think of like a SIDS baby. I hate to say this, but a SIDS baby. You put the baby to bed, and you go check on the baby. The baby's not alive. And how does? Well, no, I just put the baby was just like
Right.
Things don't compute. It doesn't make sense, and you can't put it together. Your brain short circuits. I've seen it.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it just doesn't make. And she didn't even know where she was the night before. She'd never been to that house, and all of a sudden there's John there. And wait a minute, and like none of that could have ever made any sense to her in any way. So she was not firing on any of it at all.
Well, this is what I mean. You know,
So-
KMC, so she said it to her dad reportedly. You know, they made that a big thing inside the document, the Commonwealth statement, that she said they're just gonna kill us. I don't know. I just don't think so. I think you would just be in complete shock.
Dude, she was thinking things out verbally, trying to get things out of her head, trying to make things make sense. And maybe it come out and she wasn't thinking. I don't know. I wasn't there. But again, she can't, after she found John, her statements can't be relied on due to it's stress induced. And that's what happens.
Right.
Is your body releases so much chemicals. It's an overload. Your body has to dump it somewhere, and it doesn't know what to do with it. You can hear it in her voice.
Yeah.
It's coming out. That release of chemicals are coming out of her voice. It's coming out of her voice on the steps right there. You can hear it.
Oh, yeah. All right. Let's do it, Tom. We'll do a little review. We'll wait for Dave to come in, and then we'll kind of hash through what we think is going to happen tomorrow, or what has been happening. So here we go.
Either mute or watch us.
Jim, that's not me. It's somebody else is saying, free my boy Billy Tibbetts. That's not me.
Okay. Thanks, Mr. Reddington.
Thanks.
Go ahead, Mr. Jackson.
Kevin, that was you.
Good morning, Your Honor, and thank you for giving us the time to address the court on these summonses for the third-party communications. I think I can cut this relatively short, given the Commonwealth's
position that they are in agreement that the summonses for these third-party communications should issue. I want to save some court time.
Billy's innocent.
All right, so
Who the
we
hell
may
is-
have to.
Who's Billy Tibbetts? Help me out here, because I don't know. Who's Billy
Hockey
Tibbetts?
player. He's a hockey player.
Oh,
He was the muscle when he was okay at hockey. He was better at fighting on skates. It's to fight on skates is a whole thing. It's like fighting on a balance beam.
he was a Bruin.
No, he didn't make it that far.
Oh, all right. I'll look it up.
Cancel Zoom for everybody if this keeps up. We will have to cancel Zoom for everybody if this keeps up.
I think I got that person, but
Fuck off, Beverly.
I didn't.
Go ahead, Mr. Jackson.
Thank you, Your Honor. I want to try to save some court time and judicial resources. If the court is inclined, given the Commonwealth's position, that they are in agreement with us to
fucking 2
issue the
months in jail.
summonses, I'll just submit on the papers and be done.
I have third parties that need to be heard.
If the court wishes, I'm happy to address the third-party concerns once they are heard.
No, I'll hear you now.
Ugh.
In terms of the papers that were filed, and my understanding is Mr. Reddington joined on Ms. McCabe's behalf with Elizabeth Proctor's motion and her position filed by her counsel. It basically comes down to a singular issue, and that is one of privacy. They don't have standing to argue Lampron. They're not parties to this action. It appears the Commonwealth, who is the party to the action, has agreed that Lampron, the elements of Lampron have been met with our request insofar as it is concerned, specifically and addressed to Michael Proctor, Trooper Michael Proctor, and his communications with Jennifer McCabe, Elizabeth Proctor's communications with Jennifer McCabe, Jennifer McCabe's communications, counter communications with Elizabeth Proctor, and Michael Proctor's communications with Brian Albert and Nicole Albert. I'll address the issues that counsel raised in his moving papers on behalf of Elizabeth Proctor, because that's the only writing that I have to go on at this point. He basically argued that there are false statements made about Michael Proctor's relationship with some of these other parties. Since the very beginning, and that brings up the fundamental issue, Your Honor, of what is that relationship and what's the nature of the relationship, and why do we believe that that relationship establishes extrinsic evidence of bias and an inability to be neutral. From the very beginning of this case, we have questioned the neutrality and the bias of Michael Proctor and certain other government witnesses based on overwhelming facts that we've learned, overwhelming facts that establish that both this investigator and this investigation are compromised. That's why we...
Do you have that, Tori? Okay. Go ahead.
Thank you. That's why we've asked for the communications that the Commonwealth has now agreed with. Our request is nothing short of critical to our defense, obviously, and it's based on Ms. Reed's constitutional right as established in Davis versus Alaska, the U.S. Supreme Court constitutional right that's recognized as the right to attack the credibility of any government witness, be they a government witness on behalf of the police and the investigation or any other government witness.
Is Elizabeth Proctor a government witness?
She is not, but Jennifer...
I'm going to just kind of pause this real quick. And Lacey Ann says he's definitely a phenomenal advocate for his clients. I have to tell you this. Sources that I have talked to, Karen's defense team believes so much in her innocence. It's not even like, I hate to kind of say it. It kind of sounds corny. It's not even funny. You know, that's what sources tell me. They believe that she is so innocent, and that's why they've been so, what's the word I'm looking for?
I heard this was one of the easiest cases they have because she's so innocent.
Right.
And it's factually innocent.
They believe so much in her.
Yep.
It's
I heard.
so strong.
And look at their actions. Their actions back up confidence. Their actions back up that they have evidence. Their actions back up knowledge. That's what you want. I mean, that's what you pay them for. But they have it. They got it. That's the thing.
And I'm going to tell you, I don't think, in my opinion, I just don't think that there's any other attorneys on earth that could handle this the way that they've been handling this. There's no other attorneys on earth that I would want to say, I want you to be Karen Reed's team. This is the team that is, I mean, if it sounds strange, that has been blessed to come into her life and defend her of these frivolous charges. We know it's frivolous. We know this is a bunch of bullshit. But there couldn't be, you know, 3 better attorneys to come in and take the reins on this. She's been blessed. I mean, you know, and that's why I truly believe in the end, when all of this shenanigans, tomfoolery, whatever you want to say, is over and done with, and Karen can move on with her life. It's just it couldn't be 3 better attorneys.
McCabe is, and the communications that we're interested in are the communications that are concomitant between Elizabeth Proctor and Jennifer McCabe. We've established that there is a close personal relationship between and among Michael Proctor and obviously Elizabeth Proctor and these third-party culprits that have been implicated in this case.
Here, I'm going to kind of counteract this. John says, I say it's a hard case for them because Auntie Bev continues to deny his words. That's true. Who cancels an evidentiary hearing? And that is true too. But I'm going to tell you right now, if this goes to trial, can you imagine them on cross with the witnesses? Can you imagine that?
Listen,
It's going to be like fishing with dynamite. It's not even going to be fair.
You won't be able to get down the street because there'll be that many TV news crews there. This will be bigger than the OJ thing by like massive amounts. I mean, it'll get huge. They don't want that. They want to get out of this. They're looking for an out. How do they get out of this with saving face? They can't. How do we get out? How do we get out? Got to be a way. Hold on, stall.
I mean, it's going to be.
That's where we're at, and that's their play. Look at it. That's
it's going to be fishing with dynamite. It's not even going to be fair.
Yeah. Say it. You're right.
It's not even going to be fair. Smoked. Yes. Smoked. They will destroy the witnesses. Absolutely. All right.
Sushi.
We've brought to the court's attention the Alberts and the McCabes. That's the relationship, and that's the foundation of our request. This is so important that I'll bring it back to the court's attention, and the court knows this, that even the sitting DA, the elected DA, decided to weigh in on this issue of the relationship between the Proctors and the McCabes and or the Alberts. And he said there's no such relationship, zero. This doesn't exist. As a matter of fact, the word that he used was, it's a lie. Any suggestion to the contrary that there's any kind of relationship between the Proctors and the McCabes or the Proctors and the Alberts is a lie. His words. So the DA himself has put Trooper Proctor's neutrality at issue, and he did it in the most public way possible, and I would suggest a clumsy way. Who was he talking to? He didn't come into this courthouse and address the court, as we've all done. He didn't address the court. He didn't address the Commonwealth. He is the Commonwealth. He didn't address us, the defense. What he did do is he addressed the public and the potential jurors, and that was by design.
How can he do it?
Evidence.
What's that, Tom?
How can he do that? How can he influence the jurors, and then they're gonna lock up Aiden for the freaking same thing that they're trying to get him on? You know, influence the jury pool. Okay, that's what he did. Exactly what he did. He used the media to do it. He read a statement in his office on the clock.
And this is why I take this back to, and I've talked about this a lot on the channel as well, referring to this case. And I know it's 2 completely different cases, 2 completely different states, but I like to use this example. You have those fun-loving migrants that beat the shit out of those 2 New York police officers, right?
Yep.
They don't even get arrested, not even detained, and get to walk into court unshackled, uncuffed to go face their charges. And then they're allowed to leave court, get on a bus, and start hightailing out to California. Thankfully, they've all been wrangled up and charged now, and they will face charges. But you have someone that literally used force, that kicked the shit out of police officers, never mind. And all you have someone here is someone protesting, using their voice, the power of the pen, and they're being jailed and locked up for it. I mean, this is the fucking world we live in now.
It's Massachusetts.
This is the fucking world we live in now. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable.
That we've procured and that we've presented to the court as lies. Well, let's look at those lies for a quick second. We have presented the court with photographic evidence, not something that we came up with, something they came up with. Photographs in Exhibit C in our moving papers. And I'll just cover a couple of those. There's a photograph that we presented that shows Trooper Proctor's mother, the person by the name of Colin Albert, pictured in the photograph, with Trooper Proctor's sister pictured in the photograph, with Chris Albert pictured in the photograph, and with Jennifer McCabe's own daughter depicted in the photograph. They're all together at a birthday party. These are close and immediate family members of the Proctor family, the Albert family, and the McCabe family, and they're all together and they're socializing. That's not a lie, it's a photograph. And it's unassailable evidence of that relationship. There's a second photograph of Trooper Proctor and Colin Albert in a wedding party together. And I would urge the court to note, they're not at a wedding together, they're in a wedding together, in the wedding party. There's a third photograph.
And
Trooper
when was
Proctor-
that? When was
Sorry?
that? When was that?
2012. So this relationship, as the court just noted, and I was about to get to in a second, is not just days old, months old, weeks old. This relationship is decades old between these families. There's another photograph that the court has seen, Trooper Proctor literally on the dance floor with Colin Albert. So when counsel for Elizabeth Proctor suggests, oh no, these relationships, you can't believe any of this stuff, just because someone happens to be at the same event does not thereby establish a relationship. They weren't just at the same event. They're in a wedding party together. They're standing on the dance floor, side by side, shoulder to shoulder, Trooper Proctor and Colin Albert.
And then keep in mind, this is not even, if this goes to trial, this is not even in front of the jury yet. Wait until he gets in front of the jury.
You're going to call Proctor's mom?
And Little start talking.
I want to see Proctor's mom on the stand.
I mean,
wait till all the Proctor's mom gets on, and then the relatives start coming on. They're all going to be subpoenaed. Here we go.
I mean, this is not even in front of the jury. This is just a hearing, and you're getting I mean, this is a warm up to what's coming. If it goes to trial, this is a warm up.
I think they can subpoena everyone in that wedding, can't they, as witnesses?
I would guess, yeah. That's probably why he's getting it on the record.
The bride and groom getting married. Now they're going to get subpoenaed just for having a wedding. Nice.
Yeah.
We see a photograph of all of them seated at the same dining room table. They shared a meal together. This is socializing. These are interpersonal relationships, and they can't change that. Trooper Proctor was seated at the same table having dinner with Colin Albert, Chris Albert, and Chris Albert's wife, Julie. Then there's the Facebook post, and I will leave it at this. I'm not going to go through the entirety of my motion, but I would highlight the last point that I think should be highlighted for the court's attention, and that's the Facebook post. Trooper Proctor's mother refers to the Albert family as the Proctor's second family. So one might actually ask Mr. Morrissey, who's actually lying in this case? Is it us? We just presented the court with factual information that was procured off of social media that it's unassailable. It cannot be assailed. And the Proctors have known these people for, as the court just mentioned, by asking for that date, for more than a decade. They've socialized with him, and his family considers their family to be so close and interconnected that they are deemed a second family to the Proctors. And who exactly are members of this Albert family and or McCabe family? Let's look at those members. Brian Albert, Nicole Albert, who is Jennifer McCabe's sister, Brian Albert Jr., Brian and Nicole's son, Caitlin Albert, Brian and Nicole's daughter, Jennifer McCabe, Nicole Albert's sister, Matt McCabe, Brian Albert's brother-in-law, Chris Albert, Brian Albert's brother, Julie Albert, Brian Albert's sister-in-law,
on the record,
and Colin Albert, Chris and Julie Albert's son.
On the record.
The McCabes and Alberts ostensibly are one family. They socialize within the same social circle and the same familial circle, and that is who the Proctors have proclaimed to be their second family. And if that weren't enough, we find out during the pendency of this case on September 25th, 2023, that one of those family members, Jennifer McCabe, who's the subject of great interest in this case and a primary person of interest in this case is invited to Trooper Proctor's personal home for some sort of off-the-books meeting. Do we know about this meeting? Because Trooper Proctor, upon learning this, that Jennifer McCabe was coming to his house, ran back to the office and filed a police report, a supplemental report explaining this meeting, this off-the-books meeting. No, he never disclosed it. We found out about this because a concerned citizen happened to photograph Jennifer McCabe's car parked outside Michael and Elizabeth Proctor's personal residence in the evening after hours. And the best that counsel for Elizabeth Proctor can muster in terms of an argument is to say, well, you know what, Your Honor, maybe he wasn't home. Maybe, or maybe not. The suspicious part is Trooper Proctor isn't saying. And there's nothing in Elizabeth Proctor's motion to suggest that he wasn't home. Certainly his car was there. Elizabeth Proctor's car was there, and Jennifer McCabe's car was there. Was Trooper Proctor home? I guess I would answer that by asking the question, does it matter if Trooper Proctor was home? They've now admitted that Jennifer McCabe, a central character in the middle of this investigation, in the middle of this crime, was secretly meeting and or socializing with the lead investigator and or his wife in the living room of their home. And that, Your Honor, is a problem. And it shows more than a professional connection. It shows a personal connection. And according to the Proctor family's own counsel, Elizabeth Proctor's counsel, the subject matter of that meeting was commiserating about this case. They weren't talking about sports. They weren't talking about the weather. They were meeting about this case. So how does that not show a bias, and how does that not implicate Karen Reed's constitutional rights to this information? And to this day, the Commonwealth has yet to concede what obviously is now.
Real quick, I just want to get these in. Let's see. Suzanne, thanks for the Venmo. I appreciate it. And Moxrella, thank you for the coffees. I appreciate that. And then the anonymous that came through, buy me a coffee. I appreciate that too. Thank you. Thanks for the support. And just do me a favor, if you can smash that like button, we want to get this out into the algorithm. Dave should be joining us pretty soon. I told him to take his time. Tom and I had planned to do this little bit of review. We'll pull Dave in and kind of roundtable this and to think, what we think is going to happen. I have my thoughts about tomorrow. I think Tom has his. I'd love to hear what Dave has to say. And I tried getting Sean on tonight, but Sean hasn't been feeling well. And I told him just to hook up with me when, we'll do something together when he's feeling better. So what was I going to say? All right, let's keep playing through here.
Sort of front page news that there is, in fact, a personal relationship between the Proctors and their second family, the Albert McCabe family. But here's what the Commonwealth has said, even though they haven't made that connection or that concession. On October 3rd, 2022, Mr. Lally made a couple of points, eloquent points in this courtroom. And what he was doing when he did it in October was illustrating what an inappropriate relationship would look like if one existed.
Yeah.
What a conflict of interest would look like if one existed. And he said, quote, Michael Proctor has been fully vetted, end quote. He said, there's no conflict of interest here because it's not like, quote, these people are socializing together, end quote. He said, it's not like, quote, these people know each other, end quote. And he went on to say, it's not like, quote, these are people that Trooper Proctor has been over to their home, end quote. The Commonwealth said that because these facts would surely illustrate a conflict of interest. They would surely illustrate an undeniable bias. And those comments, Your Honor, I would suggest have not aged well. And I would wonder at this point if the Commonwealth hasn't adjusted its stance, which is why the Commonwealth is now conceding that we're entitled to these communications. And that turns on the question of asking, how could Trooper Proctor be expected to adequately and honestly investigate this case as the lead investigator and also investigate the Albert McCabe involvement in this case with this history of an interpersonal relationship and allegiance to those very people, the very third-party culprits, the very people who should be suspects in John O'Keefe's murder.
Just going to pause this really quick and just kind of pull out, because I saw a comment. I think it was a bad comment. I'm not going to pick on the person that said it in the room. But I kind of want to just talk about YouTube and just talk a little bit about this really quick in cases. And I've talked about this a lot on my streams. The thing you have to understand in any case or any place in YouTube with live streaming, especially true crime, cases are going to come and go. People are going to come and go. So you will have waves of when you're on a complete high. You know, when I started Idaho, there was tons of people watching. This is a very specific case to Massachusetts. I live in Massachusetts. I live 20 minutes from where this happened. I've been loved and embraced and accepted by the Free Karen Reed movement. I've obviously connected with Tom and Turtle Boy and all the locals, Dave, all of you being out there. You know, I appreciate that support. And, you know, I've talked about niching down into some of the other cases here in Massachusetts and just niching my channel down to a Massachusetts channel. But the thing that I want to just express to everybody is when we do the off streams, and I've talked about this, I'm not going to always do Karen Reed stuff. I can't. There's just not enough material to do that. So really, we kind of vocalize and centralize about things that happen around hearings or court dates or whatever, a motion. I want to just express this to all of you. Please, if you can, come over and check out some of the other streams, because you're missing great content. Like Tom had an off stream the other day and I was peeking in on it, and I apologize. I don't know who the female guest was with.
That was Jess from the Canton 9.
Okay.
Canton 9, yep.
Okay, that was with you. And I was kind of peeking in and listening to it at work, and it was a great stream. You know, I've been doing Nicholas Rossi. I tell you, I urge you, go back and watch those streams. It will blow your mind. I've actually just recently connected this morning. Actually, I had a phone call with one of his friends. I'm going to have him on the show. And this guy that's lived these multiple personality lives. That's what I say. Come in and check out some of the other streams, because believe me, you're still getting the same people with the same people. And I get it. It might not be something that you fully are invested in, but you'll be surprised. Some of this stuff really blew people away. And it's funny, the Rossi streams have been growing because people are like, holy shit, this guy's crazy. And it's a Providence case. It's a Providence case. And you would be surprised. But I appreciate you all. I do. I appreciate you all. What were you going to say, Tom?
And that's going to fluctuate with anything. It's human interest, whether they get on that train and they get on it and everyone's going up and down the roller coaster ride, or, you know, I mean, I'm working on a project with Jess. I mean, we're working on a couple things that are pretty big. And
I mean, I even look at it too. I mean, some of the most. Go ahead, Tom.
There's a need for it. There's so many people. I can't believe first off, I can't believe the people that are missing in the state. It blows my mind. I mean, every day I just want to shut my ears off. I cannot believe what I'm hearing. And it's so much. There's so much out there. You got to talk about it. You have to. I don't see how you can't. Now, Karen stuff, right? That's priority because that is such a travesty. At the same time, we can still look at other things, the other cases that people forget about.
Sure. And I'm working on something. I'm working on something now where I'm going to do a lot of compare and contrast between Brian Walsh and Karen Reed's case. I got a lot of compare and contrast. I just got to get the.
Wait till that happens.
Yeah, I'm just going to get the stream together, and I've been slowly putting the information together. But that's, you know, what we can do. We can learn from other cases. We can learn, you know, like I played how cast information is used in cases when we played that on the Murdoch trial, and it's going to be very prevalent in this case too. You know, we talked about that and how, you know, going forward in the future, I think cast is going to be the wave. And Cellbrite extraction, we heard about that during the Murdoch trial. So, you know, you learn different things from hearing different cases and going through all of that and the way. And it's funny how all these processes kind of end up in certain cases, but a lot of similarities in cases too. So I like to cover a mixed bag of things because I like to just learn about the process of cases, what happened. I love to look into things, investigate things, and that curious mind that I've always been. And again, I've said I'm a huge supporter of the Free Karen Read movement. I will support Karen Read all the way until this is dismissed and she walks out of that courtroom free, or wins at her trial or whatever it may be. The Fed step in tomorrow and let her down on the table and say this is all over. We don't know. We don't know. But I will continue to support her. So,
but at the same time, I kind of want to let the audience steer what happens and whatnot, and do something a little different,
Yeah, of course.
We're trying to think outside the box because
listen, I'm already thinking
everyone's got a channel. We have to do something different than everybody else. So that's how we think, is what can we do that someone's not doing?
I'm already thinking too much. I'm always thinking too much ahead in YouTube.
And we want to obviously, we do it for you guys. We do it for everyone that's listening to us or watching to us, or however they're getting this content. We're trying to bring you some more. That's what we're trying to do. And the Karen case is easy because she is factually innocent. You can't put together this. Show me the taillight. I mean, come on.
Do you know how much shit I got from people that I used to stream with? I used to get so much shit from people that I was crazy and I've gone to the dark side. And I would say to these people, if you just would look into things without going into it with, blinders on or a concrete wall in front of your face and open yourself up. And I get it. I think Karen's case is a very unique set of circumstances and details, and the way that this all happened. It's a very, very interesting case. And clearly, what the Commonwealth is trying to say did not happen. I mean, it's factually did not happen. And it's, and I don't
seen that.
And I just want to say this, though.
Have you ever stopped? Have you ever just seen that alone? Forget about going federal.
I don't go into every case and go, oh, it's a conspiracy. No, I think this is a very unique set of circumstances. I don't think that every fucking investigator and cop is out there trying to frame every single person.
No,
this is a very unique case
because they have the evidence and they have the facts, they have the photos, they have the video, they have it, they have the data. That's not the case here.
Right.
Specifically, intent. It's either on purpose or it's intentional.
Right.
It can't be in the middle. It's what you either did it intentionally or it was an accident. And if it was an accident, you shouldn't be doing that. And your past practice shows it wasn't an accident, which means it was on purpose. And there's no other words. There's nothing. It's one or the other. And you picked one.
Right.
That's it. You can't go backwards now.
Exactly. Renee, thank you so much for the $1.99. She says Karen Read is factually innocent. All right, let's go back to the hearing here again. Tom, if you need to chime in, let me know. Dave should be joining us in a little bit. I told him just take your time. We'll be here for a little while. So.
And the answer is he cannot. And since the authorities, including Michael Morrissey, apparently have vouched for Trooper Proctor, my client, our client, Ms. Reed, is entitled to question and to test that voucher. And that's what we're seeking to do with the communications between Elizabeth Proctor and Jennifer McCabe. And insofar as that request is concerned, it's unquestionable that there are privacy interests at play, but I would suggest the following: that the constitutional due process rights of any criminal defendant in any criminal case hold a paramount significance because they form the very backbone of the justice system that this court presides over. And protecting those rights.
What I always like to do when we know that we're going to another hearing, I always like to play the last one. I usually have Tom on because we go through them, and that's usually what we do before there's another hearing. So that's why I've done it. Health detective wants us alert. Taylor Swift has been marked safe in Casey. I don't think she was there today. Thank God she wasn't there. Jeez.
Such is the right to a fair trial, such as Ms. Reed's right to the presumption of innocence. That ensures an equitable trial and an equitable process. And while privacy rights of Elizabeth Proctor, a third-party witness.
Hey, Dave, how are you?
I am doing great, guys. How are you?
How was your dinner?
Wine and cheese, the best meatball sub you'll get in North Providence. How's everybody doing?
Hey, well, man, thanks for jumping on with us. You know, we got a hearing tomorrow, and I'm always love to see what curious minds here think on what you. So what we'll go around here. We'll go around the table. I'll start with Dave since Dave just jumped on. So all of a sudden, there's the whole Facebook group's blowing up today. We get a post. Karen Reed's hearings ongoing tomorrow at 2 p.m. What did you first think, Dave?
Well, knowing that the testimony is not over, and I definitely know that, so I was surprised. And I think there's probably some pressure on the judge to end this, right? Get this thing going. And I think we're all pretty much resigned to the fact now that the trial is going to be delayed. At least I am. I'd love to know what you guys think, but it's probably more like a September, October kind of thing now. So I'm surprised. If you're asking me what my reaction was, there's nothing that I don't think that's going to be turned over tomorrow to Karen Reed's defense. So I don't really know what tomorrow is going to be all about. We'll be streaming it, and I'll be interested to hear what the defense says and what the Commonwealth says and what the judge has to say. Tomorrow's going to be an interesting hearing. I don't think it's going to be explosive like a lot of the hearings we had over the summer, but it's going to be interesting for different reasons.
Let me ask you, do you think Karen's team puts on, I think they will, they'll put on the record about the feds again, and maybe they have some information that was turned over to them?
Well, I think, just being putting on my defense lawyer hat, and I'm a really dumb CO, so don't take anything that I'm saying for at face value. But if I'm a defense attorney, I'm floating out everything I can on the feds all the time, right? So I'm hammering the fuck out of that. Excuse my language.
No, I don't care. You can swear. We're an hour in.
And I'm hammering that pretty hard every single chance I can get. And whatever they've been told so far. I mean, hey, listen, did you see Josh Levy's press conference today regarding the gang members and the drugs?
We talked about it. Yep.
And 40 something guys went down today. They're probably going to go down on RICO charges. The racketeering and corrupt organizations. And Josh Levy is not fucking around. He wants that job full time. He's a careerist like all these guys are. Everybody's thinking about their next sort of station in life, right? And so he's already said he disagrees with the Commonwealth's theory essentially on this case.
Yeah.
So if I'm Yannetti, I'd be willing to bet that Yannetti's going to bring it up tomorrow in court, as any good defense lawyer would be. Shit, if I ever get in trouble, guys, please do a fundraiser. Get me David Yannetti. So.
Well, let me ask both of you then. I'll throw this question out, and I'll start with Tom first, then we'll go back to Dave. If Levy's feeling this way, and we saw the press conference when we had the CDL scam, and he got the last question, and that was the big famous question at the end of the presser, and they asked him, what about the Karen Reed case? And he said, well, we're not here to talk about that. And he kind of smiled and give that look to the reporter. If he knows that all this is going down, essentially, he, like you said, he doesn't feel in good faith that this can go forward. Why not throw the hammer now and say, hey, getting some audio issues with someone. I don't know who that was.
Go ahead.
Yep, you're good.
I can hear you fine, man. Might be me, but I can hear you fine.
Okay. So why not throw the hammer down? I'll go to Tom first. I think you're getting some feedback, Dave.
Sorry, guys.
That's okay. Why would he do that?
Why wouldn't he do that? Throw the hammer down now and say, all right, let's step in.
If you're this far in on an investigation that cost how much have you put into this money wise? Because it comes back down to dollars. I keep trying to say everything costs money. These guys get paid a salary, right? And they have printers and they have ink and they have paper. They have a budget to do this with. This is big. Like if he's investigating Karen Reed, it absolutely has to pay off for him in the long run. If he's going after gangbangers right now, and there's another thing. I heard the number was 150 people, right? And they banged out 40 of these people for RICO. That's 110 people left, right? That's about right. If we're going down the road that he's going down, look at what he's doing. He's picking apart. This is organized crime. This is Whitey's legacy that he left behind that's still running, that he's going after. I'm telling you right now, I believe that to be true, because when Whitey left, everything kept going. And they just had people walk in, step in, and they're the new one in charge. As for Dave, what he said, he's right. We don't even have the evidence yet. So if you don't have the evidence, I mean, you're looking at October, November. You don't think Karen's gonna like have her attorneys look at every single piece of the evidence?
Of course. I just
So,
think that, I mean, I think at this point for me, I think they want to push this to trial. They want it to trial. You know, it just with everything that has happened over the last, let's say, 6 to 8 months. You know, now we got to go through. Now we have to push this through. We have to do it. And I think it's just going to keep getting pushed and pushed. And I don't know. I'm in kind of like, I think I'm kind of angry, but a little upset. And I thought maybe the feds would have stepped in and done something by now, or said something, or sent some letter over and said, hey, we can't, you know, you can't go through with this. I don't know. It's kind of puzzling to me.
That's not going to happen. I can put that to rest for you. The feds are not going to come in until that case is fully formed. And I'm not trying to play armchair lawyer. I just know that all the testimony is not done. So there's no hammer coming down tomorrow.
Yeah.
But, you know, I would say that, you know, we're close. We're very close, but and they're not going to come in until they're still missing testimony. There's still people who are going to talk to the federal grand jury, I think. So.
And they still don't even have all the evidence. I mean, we just found out that all the screw ups with the Google, what was it, McCabe's information getting over was wrong, and you know, the Verizon details were wrong. So it's like, what the fuck, you know?
Yeah. There's been some stuff in discovery that hasn't been correct, and
2
all
years
that needs
in.
to be fixed. So go ahead,
Dave. 2 years in, Dave. How has that happened? 2 years in. How?
Well, there's a lot of incompetent people involved in this. I think, you know, we say all the time that, you know, you put on a nice suit or you pass a psych eval or a PT test, and like people assume that you're like really smart, and that's like crazy to me. You're not dealing with the best and the brightest. You know that, Tom, very well. You know.
This is scary stuff. It really is. I don't see how they can't have evidence back from the lab within a year. A year. That's a long time. A lot of vacations. That's a lot of holidays. Stuff still gets done.
Yeah. Hang on a second.
Yeah. I just think it's about presenting, you know, the feds are slow. You know, they're real slow. You know, those gears grind pretty slow. But when they come down, it's, what is it, 98.2 or something like that success rate?
And they got them on RICO. On RICO.
Yeah.
So from the joint filing, it said this. I'm assuming in number 6, I assume the information is received prior to February 15, 2024. The parties will still need time to assess the information and potentially conduct further investigation to modify their arguments for the hearing for the defense motions. Given the hearing date is only a week away, the parties will believe that there's not enough time to do that. I wonder if they just both go in and lay it on the table tomorrow and just say, look, Judge, we're not ready. I mean, maybe it's just a quick hearing like that. I mean, it's
definitely going to be that. I think it's definitely going to be that, Brian. And again, I've been wrong. I misread situations I've been doing videos on this case since fucking May.
Right.
You could write a laundry list of the things I've been wrong about, but
all of us can.
Yeah. But that's my read on the situation tomorrow is everybody's going to come in and just say, we got to push this thing off. We don't have it. Sorry.
And that's just to inconvenience everybody and drag them into court.
But what does the judge say about that? Because that's almost like, how do you explain that? How do you defend that? What's your excuse?
Well, I think frankly, Auntie Bev is going to be, maybe deep down pretty ecstatic. I mean, she's got her hands full with this Chestnut fucking disaster that's happening right now. And, you know, we were covering it today, and it's just, again, it's a fucking nightmare. And, you know, and this Karen Reed thing is going to be, you know, maybe even more than that. So, you know, I think deep down she's got to be like, ah, fuck, you know, as bad as we want. And I'm sure she's getting pressure, you know, to like, hey, let's end this thing. You know, it's been very divisive, and, you know, whatever way it goes, let's get some finality. But I mean, we can't just go to court with, you know, 75% of our discovery and with a federal investigation looming. It's just can't do it. So
Yeah, I want to
we should all be relieved that at least he wants to go after crime. And if we have people that are committing crimes, we can only pray he goes after them. That's all we can do.
Right. He's kicking ass. He's kicking ass right now.
Doing his job well. He is.
And you know, and we all know that our last district attorney, Rachel Rollins, United States attorney, I mean, she was a political hack who did not prosecute crimes. And for whatever you think about her, I mean, she was a vile left-wing racist, and that's what she was. And if you read the report, Tom and Brian, on Rachel Rollins' resignation, it's 181 pages, but I beg you to read it when you have some time or you want to torture yourself if you're a masochist like me. Levy is all over that report, and he was straight as an arrow in that report. I
read a bunch of it. I read a bunch of it. It's good reading once you get into it. Like he's in. He's all in.
He's all in, and he was in her ear, like, "Hey, Rachel, we shouldn't do this. You shouldn't do this. You shouldn't do that." So he came across as a straight arrow on it,
and he gave her a heads up.
He did give her the heads up for sure.
She still did what she did.
So I want to go to, I keep hitting the wrong fucking button here. I want to go to this real quick. Just number 13. So on November, just so people get what we were talking about, November 15, 2023, the Supreme Court Judicial Court, Kafker, presiding, ordered the Verizon produce certain information associated with Jennifer McCabe's cell phone for the date of January 29, 2022. On November 16, 2023, the court ordered their production. Verizon sent the records that were received by the court on November 27, 2023, but did not share with the defense counsel until January 25th of 2024. Once counsel reviewed them in late January, it is discovered that the Verizon had not apparently sent the correct records. To this date, Verizon has not complied with the court's order, so the parties have not seen the proper records. Like, what the fuck?
Remember, they were arguing about whose responsibility it was.
Yeah.
And it says,
they literally had a pissing match over whose responsibility it was on the taxpayer dollar for months and months. So
4 months.
Where your money's going.
It's insane. You know, almost 3 months away until the defense counsel receives. Oh, and then by the way, they're fucking wrong.
Yeah. And they weren't even the right ones, right?
So, I mean, yeah, I think you're right, Dave. I mean, if this goes to trial, it's going to be fall. You know, it might even be in the spring of next year.
It might be. Let this shit's going to drag out for, I mean, what are we talking? January 29, 2022, as we sit here right now in February of 24, and we're looking at, I don't know, at least 3 to 6 months out. It just, you know, but listen, at the end of the day, if there's a federal investigation that finds something, it's probably all going to be worth it, right?
I think I mean, you've talked about this with Sean on your channel too. They know what happened in that house. They know what happened. I have pretty strong. I have a pretty strong feeling they know what already happened in that house.
Yeah, I just, as anybody would tell you who's involved in any, you know, sort of arm of the system, you know, there's a big discrepancy between knowing what happened and being able to prove what happened. And I think that's the phase that we're in right now, which we gotta lock that down. So that's what's happening at Moakley Courthouse. So
did you catch Sean last week when somebody made a comment about people in spacesuits at 34 Fairview over the summer? You didn't hear him to say that, did you?
Who said that? Sean?
Yeah.
He has COVID. Give him a break. I didn't see that. No.
Over the summer, I'm telling you, over the summer, there were people at 34 Fairview. It was after the house got sold but before the new owners got it, there were people in spacesuits. Sean said that people in spacesuits were there as doing like evidence collection, like DNA collection, like with luminol stuff like that. So Sean put a third party in that house.
I heard something like that.
In between the selling and the purchase.
Okay.
I'm gonna go back and
And
look.
there were pictures online during the summer, and someone said that they were exterminators.
Oh yeah. I know what you're talking about. You're talking about like the bio guys who come in and check for like blood spatter.
Yep.
They check for evidence of.
They wear the one piece.
Yeah, sure. You often see them after somebody commits suicide or unfortunately.
Tyvek suits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you wear booties and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
there was two people seen at 34 Fairview in the summertime taking a break. They had opened their suits and they were taking a break outside.
Yeah, I remember. I do remember that. That was like, Jesus Christ.
John validated that.
When I went in September, and you can see it on the stream that I did, I walked Fairview in September and I did some lives down there. There were construction trucks at that house in September doing something. Because you can see all the vans in the driveway. And I even say, oh, it looks like there's a bunch of workers coming and going from the house. So
well, that would make sense.
That was in September.
Right?
Tara, thank you so much for the $2 Canadian. Happy Valentine's Day to you.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Thank you for joining in. So, it just sucks because it's like, we go tomorrow, this keeps dragging on, this is like what, over 2 years now for Karen. I can only imagine the impending stress that she's going through in this situation.
Where do you even start? How do you put yourself in her shoes? How?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's obviously, it's you're free, but you're not really free, for the people who, when you're on paper, I've mentioned this 100 times over the months is being on paper is not very, you don't feel very free. I mean, you're doing check-ins, you can't, travel as much without getting permission. You're out, $80,000-$90,000 of money that you probably don't have nowadays. It's certainly not freedom. So you can't work, you can't drive. Right. I mean, all those things so she's certainly not free. So I know. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I know for me, and we were talking about like the length in cases, I feel like a lot of the cases that I've been following are just taking forever. Like I follow the Idaho 4 case. Now that's supposed to get bumped into next year. Now they're saying, and it's like, this is going to go along. Like every case is going like a super long time now. Like what the fuck?
And let's ask this question, Brian. I don't know where you stand on the Idaho 4. It's not a case that I've followed super in depth, but I just want like a 1 sentence answer. It's pretty clear that Kohlberger's guilty, right?
1000%, dude.
So what are we doing? What are we doing? I mean, I guess like as somebody who I don't know, I could get wrongfully accused of something tomorrow. I don't fucking know.
Right.
I do a lot of stupid shit. So I want things to grind and go slow, right? Because that's like the way our Constitution was set up, and those brilliant people who came before us set it up like that. But I mean, it is pretty crazy that. I mean, look at Stephen Avery. That thing dragged on for years.
Oh, Delphi. Look at Delphi. That's dragging. That's almost 7 years now.
And again, it's like you have a guy on tape telling his wife that I did this. I did this. And I know there was a prison guard there who was sacrificing people and shit who made him do it. But it's just wild, man.
These cases, these cases are wild. And like I said, it feels like now it's like everything gets dragged out. And I saw Tom going like this. It's the money. It's the money.
Yeah. It's all about
keep people employed.
Yep. Yeah. Get these defense lawyers and these prosecutors rich, and, keep feeding the media, get these judges and these special prosecutors.
Think of the court system, just the money that they pay. How much do people got to pay the courts, Dave? After they get popped,
it's fucking wild, man. Yeah,
they find a reason to charge you for everything.
Right. Yeah. Just ask anybody who's ever been on probation for, I've never have, thankfully, but I mean, guy, you say you get probation for a year, those fines are huge. It's a couple $1,000s a month. that you're paying to the court. And
Yeah.
it's a huge, we've turned I say this all the time. Like, I feel like people get annoyed that I say it all the time, but it's true. We have turned people's pain into profit. We've done that in this country, and we have to find a way to undo that somehow. It's not right.
No, I agree. Totally agree. And there's a lot of crazy people out there today. I mean, shit, we were just talking about, and I think you did a stream on it earlier, the thing at the Chiefs parade today. Like, what the fuck? You know, it's like you can't even go anywhere anymore.
And there's already criminals all over Twitter. I mean, I'm seeing it all over my feed who immediately just like, number one, it was a gang shooting. None of these guys had these weapons legally. I don't want to make this a political thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
The minute you start coming for my rights, you become a criminal, in my opinion. And now you're the criminal. And, you know, it's already, you can already see it. It's just ban guns, ban guns, ban guns. And this is the most violent time in our history right now. You know what I mean? I mean, you can't, these cities, you know, Chicago, New York, Boston, Philadelphia, Los Angeles, they're completely fucking unlivable because of crime. And they want to make it so you can't defend yourself.
Detroit.
When thugs are running the street. Right, Detroit.
Well,
Detroit's a third world country.
Right. And it's just what I was talking about earlier. And I actually want to pull you into this discussion too. You know, I talked about, and I know it's a completely different situation, but it makes a hell of a lot of sense. I mean, you look at, you know, the two police officers that were beaten by those fun-loving migrants out there the other day, you know, and they get detained, let go, and then they get to walk into court without any handcuffs or shackles on. They go in front of the judge, they get released, they hop a bus, they're out to California. Finally, someone fucking wakes up and says, well, maybe we should probably bring these people back because they're trying to escape. Now, Chris, granted, they're all caught, they're in jail now, but I look at this. Here you have someone, Aiden Carney, Turtle Boy, that's just speaking up about something, literally speaking up, using his words, the power of the pen, and they take him and throw him in jail because he's the bad guy because he said something that he doesn't agree with. It's just, it's fucking amazing how this country works.
There's two different kind of crimes, right? There's a crime like that where, you know, that guy, those people who, and I saw it and I was disgusted by it, and they're most likely to vote Democrat, so they'll be pushed aside. People like Turtle Boy, I mean, he's a much more dangerous criminal in the eyes of the establishment because he's a thought criminal, right?
Yeah.
And he thinks the wrong thoughts and says the wrong words.
Yeah.
So, you know, years ago, they would have just went to his house and put a gun in his mouth and hoped that would end it. And, you know, post, you know,
rough him up a little bit.
You give him a message.
Right.
Yep.
Right. Post January 6th and this sort of radical, you know, way that we use our justice system now, they just throw you in the fucking gulag and hope that you rot there or that they break you enough. So, yeah, I could totally see that. That's very much par for the course. If you pay attention to what goes on in this country now, the thought criminals are the real criminals. You know, Matt Taibbi does a thing on the Twitter files. He goes and testifies in front of Congress. And what happens? He goes home that night and there's 3 IRS guys at his door wanting to audit him.
Tucker Carlson fired.
Carlson.
Yep.
He doesn't agree with giving billions and billions of your hard-earned money to some money laundering organization in Ukraine. He's fired. James O'Keefe, the journalist that I most like in Turtle Boy, does a big expose on Pfizer and gets Pfizer executives to basically admit that this is just a fucking money operation. And what happens? They fire him from his own company that he founded. He founded.
Yeah, I know. I mean, even Elon Musk, they come after him for what he's been doing at Twitter and cleaning that, you know, letting people speak. You know, they come after him. He's under constant fire for that now. So, I mean,
the same way. They don't like Aiden's the same way.
Yeah.
They don't like what he has to say. Shut him up.
And you're to tell me that fucking let me just ask everybody, where would 90 days put let me ask you too, where would 90 days put Turtle Boy if he had to do the full 90 days? Where would that put him at? What the end of what month would that put him at?
Probably March, right?
It would be end of fucking March. And if Karen Reed went to trial, when was the trial date scheduled for?
Yeah, before March, middle of March.
Right.
Yeah, it was. He
shut
was
him
supposed,
up.
right,
Yeah.
exactly. Yep.
That's all that is.
That's all that is.
They messed up.
Yeah, they did.
They shot their load too quick.
Yeah, like you said, there's such a thing as it's It's just a terrible look. It's just a terrible look. And anybody who looks at it as an honest, sober, non-hater has to say that in my opinion. So it's we'll
Just on,
see.
just on a journalism aspect. Forget
Mhm.
about anything else. Just on a journalism aspect, this is horrific what they've done to him. It doesn't happen. It does not happen. It did. We're
Yeah,
looking
Tom.
at it in
Well,
real
I
time.
would have to correct you there. If you watch what happens nationally, that does happen. We arrest journalists constantly in this country. I just saw a guy from Blaze go away for a year just yesterday for covering a story and engaging in wrongthink. So, and internationally, in the certain Russia, Ukraine,
Listen, I'm with you, and they probably deserved it. However, this is a dude that lives in Holden Guy. He's like a neighbor. Like he walks down the street. Like he brings his kid to the bus. Like he doesn't go to these political parties where it's all the top echelon of all the Democrats and Republicans. No, he's just a guy writing what they don't want to hear.
Well, you know what it is, Tom, is because he's got all eyes on him, and he's
Right.
standing up against something that we know that is corrupt.
Who's
And
the
he's
top
a
guy?
mouthpiece.
Who's
He's
the top guy in this whole thing, though?
Right.
A Democrat hack named Michael Morrissey.
Right.
That's the top guy in this whole thing.
Right.
So it is 1,000% political.
I mean,
And-
this is it's. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Dave. Go ahead.
No, that's it.
No, I was gonna say, and if I urge all of you, and I'm sure most of you in here are very smart to this, but pick up the book, 1985. Pick up is 85, 84, 1984, 84. Yeah. Pick up the book, watch the movie, but I encourage you to read the book. There's a lot more detail in there, and they talk about the thought police awful lot in that book.
Big Brother and Thought Police.
Yep.
Definitely go read the book. It was written by George Orwell. Do not watch the movie. Take the time to read the book.
Right. It's got a lot of interesting things in there, and a lot of things that that play out in today's society and our news media.
It is literally like a bird's eye view from 30, well, actually it'd be 48 years ago now, into what's happening right now today. Every time you turn the page, you're like, holy fuck. It's like reading something in 3D, literally. Guys, I got to put the kids to bed. I'm so sorry I was late. I appreciate it. Let's do this again soon.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks, Dave. Thanks for
See you,
jumping
Tommy.
on.
Later,
All right,
bud.
take care. Yeah, I got my date wrong. I'm gonna get hell for it in the chat. Sometimes you get caught up in the moment. You forget.
1984,
Fucking old.
1985, whatever it takes.
I got the book over there.
You ever seen Mr. Mom?
Yeah.
220, 221, whatever it takes.
All right, what do you want to do? You want to play out? I can play out the rest of the hearing. We got a little bit of time.
Yeah, we got a little bit of time.
Let's play it. That was good convo. Thanks, Dave, for jumping on. I appreciate it. Check out Dave's channel, Unsafe Spaces, if you haven't. I'm sure you all have in here, of course.
Are obviously an element of concern and consideration for the court. They must yield to the imperative of a fair trial. And that imperative means Ms. Reed's ability to confront and properly cross-examine all witnesses, including Jennifer McCabe, including attacking the credibility of government witnesses, including Jennifer McCabe, based on bias, and that is fundamental to our justice system. So striking this balance ultimately upholds the integrity of the very system that this court is making sure exists and continues throughout the process of this trial. Elizabeth Proctor's privacy rights, while they exist.
I think I've just inspired myself to pick up and read this book again. I think I'm going to start reading it again. It's a great read.
Especially in light of the narrow
particularly
focus
long.
of
Not
our
a big book.
request,
So-
vastly outweighed by our client's right to a fair trial. And with that, Your Honor, I'll submit.
All right, thank you. Mr. Lally, are we going to hear first from
Poor fuck.
counsel
Look at it, you don't want to get up.
Ms. Proctor, counsel for Ms.
Ah,
McCabe?
fuck.
I got an appearance this morning of
Dude, look
counsel.
at his body language. He fucking hates being here.
He's done.
He's going to be the guy that they're going to throw this all down on and fucking.
looks like he got hit by a car. Look at him. He's not doing good. Just standing
His
up.
soul has left the building.
Look at his body language. He's on the desk.
He
He's holding
hates
himself
being
up.
here. Tom, he hates being here.
Poor guy. Man,
They're
can you
just throwing him to the wolves, man. They needed someone. They needed the fucking lackey, so they just threw him up there. He's gonna be the fall guy in the end. If they lose, holy fuck, they're gonna.
He already is. What are you talking about? We're
When
making
they
fun of the
lose.
guy right now.
When they lose, he's fucking done. They're gonna trash this guy.
So for the troopers as well.
Look at him. He's
Counsel
going-
for
he
the
doesn't wanna
troopers
fucking be
going
there.
to address us.
No, Your Honor, that's in
Okay.
reference to another motion.
Okay, so I will hear counsel for Ms. Proctor.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning.
Good
Andrew
morning.
Kettlewell for Elizabeth Proctor.
Good morning, Mr. Kettlewell.
So this is not a balancing test between the defendant's right to a fair trial, which is obviously constitutionally protected and paramount to our
Lally and him have the same fucking haircut. You notice that?
They go to the same social functions. I promise you that.
The same barber too.
system and Elizabeth Proctor's privacy rights. This is a request to bring evidence before this court for the purpose of trial under the mechanism of Rule 17 that is not within the framework of Rule 17. And I'm sure the court has had the opportunity to review our papers. Our sole basis of an objection is not Ms. Proctor's privacy rights. That is obviously a paramount concern to any third party. And the interest in not being harassed or brought into a criminal matter or a civil matter that that individual has no involvement in is obviously of interest to anyone. But as it relates to the standard here, the question is whether the defendant's request satisfies the 4 prongs of Lampron and the basis of Rule 17. And the defendant's request, I would submit to the court, fails on 3 of those 4 prongs. And I'm not going to belabor the facts underlying this whole situation. My brother laid out his case. That is laid out quite clearly in his affidavit as well. What I would say about the facts is, with regard to the first prong of admissibility and relevance, while hearsay that is reliable is certainly sufficient as a basis for a subpoena to issue, hearsay which is not a basis for a subpoena to issue. And in this case, my brother's affidavit essentially amounts to a large collection of conjecture and allegations which are not supported. With regard to the motion and the opposition that I filed, I appended an affidavit that lays out the basis for why I assert what I assert in my affidavit. And that's essentially conversations with individuals who have personal knowledge of where Michael Proctor was on the night of September 25th, 2023. Individuals who have...
Scott's got it right. He says this dude is trying to explain away the McAlbert's matrix of friends and the family. What's ludicrous? Exactly what's going on here. I gotta find that meme that I made. I'll keep playing this.
Personal knowledge of the connections between, as my brother says, these 2 families, and who have personal knowledge relating to the actual photograph that my brother didn't mention in Exhibit C of his affidavit of Michael Proctor with 2 children who are still minors, who are not children of Jennifer McCabe. Essentially, the relationship between these 2, quote, families is a distant connection that involves 5 separate steps of relationships between, I guess I'll call them relatives. Mr. Proctor's sister has a friend whose sister is married into the Albert family. And that's Chris Albert, not Brian Albert. And so what brought these different families to a wedding in 2012 was the fact that Mr. Proctor's sister, or Elizabeth Proctor's sister-in-law, was getting married, had her friend at her wedding, and her friend's sister and her family also wound up attending that wedding. The fact that Colin Albert and Michael Proctor were in the same wedding party, I think is mitigated somewhat by the fact that Colin Albert was about 10 years old at the time and served as a ring bearer because he was a child. So the connections that my brother tries to lay out in his affidavit, I would suggest are not what that affidavit makes it seem. Regardless of all of that, there's still issues on admissibility and relevance under the first prong of Lampron. And the reason for that is the defense actually includes a description of this September 25th meeting between Elizabeth Proctor and Jennifer McCabe and why that meeting occurred in a state police report that it actually appends to its motion. And whether or not a court down the road agrees that that area of testimony is valid grounds for exploration for impeachment of Ms. McCabe, what's occurring here is that the defense is attempting to use that as a basis to go get another layer of even more extrinsic evidence on the hope that something that's in the phone of an unrelated third party might impeach Ms. McCabe in an area that is already potentially a grounds of extrinsic evidence for impeachment. And that is not what is permitted under Rule 17. That is a hope, that is a conjecture, and that is not the purpose of the rule. And I'm not going to belabor the point for the court because I know the court is very familiar with Rule 17, but the purpose of the rule is to bring into the court for inspection and for purposes of trial records which are going to be admitted or are likely to be admitted at trial. It is not for discovery. It is not for exploration, whether or not that exploration the defense believes is part of its case or not. It's a question of, are those records going to be admitted at trial, and do we know they exist? And the defendant hasn't made out any of those factors at this point. The defendant is essentially assuming that there are records, does not know what is in those records, and as a basis is requesting. And that is not a Rule 17 motion, that's a discovery motion. And with regard to that kind of last prong of Lampron, I think the defendant makes clear her basis for the request in counsel's affidavit, as I cite in my opposition. And that's thus the communication surrounding this, parentheses, and other meetings, which again, the defendant has no basis to believe there might even be other meetings, close parentheses, may reveal information necessitating further pretrial motions, including a motion to dismiss based on extraordinary governmental misconduct. And that's the purpose of this Rule 17 motion, but that's not the purpose of Rule 17. The purpose of Rule 17 is to bring into court relevant and admissible records. These records are not relevant to an issue in this case. They would not be admissible under any rule of evidence. And based on what's actually asserted by my brother in his affidavit, nothing about that assertion meets the rule of Rule 17, meets the requirements of Rule 17. The fact that communications may reveal information right off the bat fails. And the fact that they are looking for these records as they might necessitate further pretrial motions, including a—
Real quick, I'm just gonna, this reminds me of a scene. Have you ever seen the movie Billy Madison with Adam Sandler?
Yes.
Right. So the part when they're doing the decathlon at the end and they're trying to grade, their intelligence, and then the principal turns to Billy Madison. He goes into this big long kind of diatribe, and I'm reading the quote here. He says, "Mr. Madison, what you've just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I've ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and God may have mercy on your soul."
Yep.
Motion to dismiss.
That's all I can think of.
Is entirely anathema to Rule 17. which is designed to bring records into the court for purpose of trial. And so based on all of those and what I lay out in my papers, I would ask the court to deny the motion.
All right. Thank you very much. Mr. Reddington, do you want to add anything? I do have your motion to join in the opposition that was just argued by Mr. Kettlewell, but do you want to add anything to that, sir?
No, Your Honor. What I would do is basically, as I indicated in the motion, is join in on the motion, noting the objection of Jennifer McCabe, obviously asserting her privacy rights, obviously suggesting, as counsel just did, that this is a clever maneuver to try to kind of weaponize Rule 17 to turn it into a discovery motion. We all know that the September 25 meeting was about harassment and what these two women had been going through on the news media with the extreme harassment that they were suffering as a result of their being witnesses on a case and cooperating with the government's prosecution of Ms. Reed. So I suggest to the court that comments like the records may reveal, and they possibly would show, which is what's in the motions that's before the court, clearly shows that there's no basis, there's no factual basis to determine that these are relevant material records other than speculating that they may reveal. Just like the allegations that the photograph of the two young kids would be Jennifer McCabe's daughters, and they're not. And it's so frustrating to the McCabe's and everybody else because they know whose kids these are. The parents know that they're their children, but nevertheless, they consistently suggest that this is showing that he's sitting there with these two kids that are the McCabe's children, and therefore, as counsel argues, this is evidence of extraordinary governmental misconduct, which is a wild accusation to be making at this point. And I suggest to the court that weaponizing Rule 17 is not proper. I join in the government's request initially objecting. And the fact that counsel has indicated that the government basically concedes and assents and does not oppose should not interfere with Your Honor's analysis of Rule 17 as opposed to waiting Rule 14 or any motions that would be appropriate before the court. Thank you.
Jim's never doing his job. He's always texting.
He's playing a game.
He's playing fucking Tetris. He's playing Candy Crush.
Some Wild Birds or some Angry Birds or something.
He's playing fucking I don't know.
Deb's playing with him too. Look at she's looking over his shoulder. Wrong move.
She's playing tic-tac-toe.
Go left.
All right. Thank you very much. Do you want to respond, Mr. Jackson, before I hear briefly from the Commonwealth?
Very briefly. Your Honor, I would simply, to the microphone, I would simply note,
thank you for your Cash App. I
as to my brother's arguments, eloquent as they may be, they missed the mark. Obviously, this is relevant and admissible. Again, I don't believe that Elizabeth Proctor has standing in the court to actually argue Lampron, but since it was brought up and since that seems to be the foundation of her argument, I do want to address one point. There's a case that was cited by my brother in his moving papers called U.S. versus Abel. It's found at 469 U.S. 45. It's a 1984 case. It does not stand for the proposition that is propounded in the paperwork. Indeed, that is a federal case, not a state court case. That's the first line of distinction. Second of all, it is a mischaracterization of the holding in Abel to say that the scope of impeachment is the outer limits. The scope of impeachment is limited to the outer limits of taking the witness's word for it. And I would simply bear upon or ask the court to review the actual holding in Abel. Justice Rehnquist does not state that the scope of impeachment is limited to, quote, taking the witness at the witness's word or taking the answer of the witness, end quote. But rather, the court specifically held that it's permissible to impeach a witness by showing his or her bias. And that's all we're seeking to do. In the court's words, Justice Rehnquist's words, quote, a successful showing of bias on the part of a witness would have a tendency to make the facts to which the witness testifies less probable in the eyes of the jury. than it would be without such testimony. And that's found at page 51. Contrary to counsel's misunderstanding of the holding of Abel, our impeachment of this witness is not limited to taking Jennifer McCabe's word for it. We're entitled to extrinsic evidence about her bias, about her lack of neutrality, about her attacking her credibility. This evidence is clearly relevant, it's clearly admissible, and the Commonwealth concedes as much in its opposition paperwork. And with that, I'll submit.
Mr. Kettlewell, did you need to respond in any way? Okay, sure.
So I'm not going to debate Abel because the court can certainly read the case. But essentially, it's the defendant's burden to meet Lampron. The defendant bears the burden to get the court to issue a subpoena and has to show all four of those factors. And it's not about whether the Commonwealth objects or does not object, and whether I have standing beyond an issue of privacy or not, which I would argue that a third party whose records are being sought certainly does. It's a question of whether they have met those elements, and they have not.
All right. Mr. Reddington, did you need to add anything to that?
No, Your Honor, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Does the Commonwealth want to argue this in any way?
God, she's so enthusiastic briefly about her job. Oh, boy.
Thank you, Your Honor. Not to belabor the point, but just to make the Commonwealth's position clear, the Commonwealth is not opposing. The Commonwealth, however, does not assent, does not concede anything as it relates to any sort of relationship or whatever is being termed as a close personal relationship. The relationship, as the Commonwealth understands it, between essentially Trooper Proctor and Miss McCabe is that Trooper Proctor has a sister who has a friend, who has a sister, who has a husband, who has a brother, who has a wife, who has a sister, who is Jennifer McCabe. And it's such a close personal relationship that after apparently scouring social media, there are exactly 0 photos that counsel has produced of Miss McCabe and Trooper Proctor pictured together at any point in time. And essentially what you have to establish this close personal relationship is a wedding party from a decade ago.
I'm telling you.
And
I'm telling you. They just threw it on him because he's going to be the fall guy in the end. I'm telling you. That's why. He's the weakest guy in this thing. They just want to have fall guy. That's all this is. I got even bad for the poor bastard. He's getting thrown to the wolves, bro. That's why you see his body language just like, oh, fuck, I got to get up there again. I got like the last time I was out there on, I think it was to this hearing, when he walked in the court, his head's down. He just doesn't want to be there. You know he doesn't.
No, he was not happy boy.
He hates his life.
Some photographs of Trooper Proctor with children purported to be Miss McCabe's children, which are not Miss McCabe's children. But given the limited scope of what is being asked for, the Commonwealth is not opposing the motion, but would obviously request that if the court were to allow the motion, that both sides would have equal access to inspect and copy whatever screenshots are there.
Bye-bye. Remember that British lady? She was the best.
Remember that show? You are the weakest link.
Bye-bye.
Awesome.
And provided by the record holder.
I love that comment.
Thank you.
All right. I'll take this under advisement. Mr. Reddington, you're free to leave, but thank you for attending. You're free to stay too, but all right. So now we'll do the motion regarding the Commonwealth's motion for protective order pertaining to the DNA profiles of the investigating law enforcement officers. So I'll hear from the Commonwealth first, then I will hear from counsel for the officers, and then I'll hear the defendant's opposition. Who's arguing this for the defense?
I will be, Your Honor.
Okay. All right. I will hear.
We're dating ourselves. You know that. That was.
I know.
25 years old, that show.
How old is that show?
Oh, no, it's got to be old.
I got to look at it.
It's got to be old.
All right, let me see. Well,
watch
it's been 13 seasons. It started in 2000. Holy shit. 24 years ago.
See? Boom.
What is that fictitious band? That fictitious rock band?
Milli Vanilli?
No.
Tony Baloney.
No. The God, what is that band? It's gonna drive me nuts. It'll come to me. But her hair looks like the lead singer of that band. Oh, what's the name of
Hear
that
you,
band?
Mr. Lally.
It's driving me crazy. Spinal Tap. Yes, that's it. Spinal Tap. Spinal Tap.
Regarding
Tom, you know who Spinal Tap is?
Yeah.
All right. You seen the lead singer?
Yep.
Who it's
That's a good one.
I gotta pull it up real quick. Right here. Look at
Look up Devo. You'll see Lally. That's the Devo guy.
That's so good. All right, we'll play this hearing and conclude it. All right.
the Commonwealth's motion for protective order pertaining
Abba, don't mess with my girls.
of the investigating law enforcement officers. So I'll hear from the Commonwealth first, then I will hear from counsel for the officers, and then I'll hear the defendant's opposition.
I don't.
Who's
smoke
arguing
pot.
this for the defense?
I do not smoke pot
Okay.
at all.
All right.
I'm not going to get into the whole pot debate, but in my mind, I think it's a complete waste of time, and I think the government is using a lot of people. That's all I have to say about it. But if you want to smoke a fatty, go for it. Just not for me.
I will hear you, Mr. Lally.
Not for me. Oh, Wayne's World's a good one too. Yep. Look, he's like,
so, Your Honor, just to clarify on this, just a point I think maybe misconstrued based on the defendant's opposition. This is not a situation in which these troopers have consented to anything at this point. The purpose of filing the motion was to try to gain some guidance from the court as to how mechanisms would be concerned with the collection of DNA, the retention of DNA, the destruction of DNA, and the timing in regard to that prior to obtaining either Trooper Proctor or Sergeant Buchanan's consent in relation to the taking of any bugle swab. So how this sort of arises is there is DNA reports in relation to the taillight of the defendant's vehicle. There are 3 possible contributors to that DNA mixture. One is positively identified as that of the victim, John O'Keefe. 2 others are unknown. There's been rampant sort of speculation, accusations levied against these particular troopers in regard to contaminating evidence, planting evidence, and things of that nature. So the exploration of this is sort of caused by that, in the sense of the Commonwealth believes that whatever DNA comes back, it would exclude those 2 troopers as being contributors to the unknown sources of DNA. So what the Commonwealth is seeking, and the reason that the Commonwealth actually filed another motion asking for sort of an expedited response from the defendant, is the hope of the Commonwealth, especially with March 12th jury trial date looming, was my hope was that there would be some sort of agreement that could be come to and a joint proposal to be presented to the court so the court could act on the papers, and this testing could be well underway, if not already completed, by the time that we reached today's court date. That unfortunately was not what happened. So we received the response earlier this week from the defendant. Essentially, most of the proposals that are included within the defendant's opposition are the precise alternative proposals as far as the protocol as the Commonwealth had laid it out. So as far as the defense not wishing for anybody associated with the state lab or state police to be collecting the sample, that's fine. We had proposed Ms. Christina Owens simply because she's a civilian member of the crime scene services section. But if it, as long as it's a certified collector, it doesn't have to be anybody associated with that. The defendant has some issue with the state police crime lab conducting any of the testing, whether that be generating the sample or doing the comparative testing, and seems to be fine with that process proceeding at Bodie and Lorton, Virginia, where some other testing related to this case is already being done. That's fine with the Commonwealth as well. Obviously, that's going to prolong things a little bit, I would submit.
Do we know that?
You guys are awesome. I love the comment.
What I can say is
So
that
great. Such comedy
our
relief.
office would certainly be inclined to pay whatever additional fees would be necessary to expedite that testing. But as far as a time frame is concerned, I really can't say exactly how long that's going to transpire for. But as far as it seems to be sort of the main sort of point of contention is the defendant's ability or access to the actual sample. That is something I would object to. You know, as far particularly in this case, I don't think there's really going to be any question that the samples or the profile that's generated is the profile of the individual troopers. It's going to be collected by an independent certified collector. It's going to be the DNA profile would be generated at an independent lab. The comparative analysis would be generated at an independent lab, and counsel would certainly have access to those DNA profiles should the defendant wish to, compare it to any other types of, any other pieces of evidence or any other, DNA that either they recovered during their evidence inspection or that was collected by the state police in regard to their investigation. So the need for the actual sample, I'm not really sure where that comes from, and the suggestion that the Commonwealth would have more access to it than the defendant would, especially if the court is inclined to go with the alternative suggestions of the independent collector, the independent generation of the profile, and the independent comparative analysis. I really don't see what defendant's access to the samples does or lends to any sort of credulity to the testing or to any further testing that the defendant wishes to conduct. So,
he's like,
so as far as that, I think really the only other sort of disparity or sticking point is the retention. The Commonwealth had suggested the end of the trial process. The reason for that versus what the defendant is suggesting as far as the conclusion of the appellate process is obviously the close of the trial process has a much more definitive end frame to it as opposed to the appellate process that could go on for months and years, if not after. And given the limited nature for which the Commonwealth is seeking the consent of these troopers to conduct this DNA analysis, it certainly made more sense to myself and to the Commonwealth as far as setting that time period if the court wishes to alter that to the conclusion of the appellate process. There are other mechanisms I would suggest that the defendant could avail themselves of should they have a need for, again, the profile would exist sort of in perpetuity in their possession, at least until the end of the appellate process. And there are obviously far more mechanisms available today than there have been in previous years as to post-conviction discovery and obtaining further samples, things of that nature. So again, that was the reason for the suggestion for the end of the trial court process. But again, the purpose of this motion was to seek the court's guidance as to exactly what the parameters of that collection, retention, destruction, and all of that would be, so that that can be presented to the troopers so that they can make an intelligent decision as far as their consent is concerned.
If this were ordered.
I'm muted. So he literally just I was listening. He literally just made his point literally in the last 5 seconds of what he just said there. So all that stuff before that, he didn't even have to say.
Just nothing.
Holy smokes. All right, we got about
too much.
We got about another 15 and we'll wrap this puppy up. Thanks for everybody being here. If you haven't already, please smash the liketh button. I would appreciate it. Go over to Tom's channel. If one of my moderators can grab Tom's link and drop that, I would appreciate it. And if one of my moderators can grab Unsafe Space YouTube channel, Dave's channel, and drop that in the chat, I would appreciate that too. All right, let's go back. We're going to wrap this puppy up and then get ready for the hearing tomorrow.
To be done at the state lab, when would the results be in?
That, I think, especially given just prior turnaround time in relation to other testing that's been done in this case, at the state lab, I would hope that could be completed within 6-7 weeks, something like that, at the most.
Okay. Do you want me to hear from Ms. Lundgren now or after? I mean, this is your motion. Do you want me to hear from her now?
I think that's fine as far as the order's concerned.
Okay.
You just lead me, Bev.
Gretchen Lundgren, Your Honor.
Good morning.
Good morning, Your Honor. Thank you for hearing from me on behalf of Sergeant Buchanan and Trooper Proctor in a discussion as their privacy interests as it relates to the Commonwealth's motion for a protective order. The proposed protective order strikes a balance between protecting the sensitive and personal DNA information of two individuals who are not alleged to have had anything to do with the death of John O'Keefe, while giving all parties access to the resulting scientific DNA analysis. The defense's opposition casts the proposed protective order as allowing the Commonwealth to obtain, test, and analyze the samples without giving them the same opportunity, but that's simply not the case. There are areas of significant agreement between the parties here. Both parties are willing to have an independent law enforcement officer obtain the DNA sample. Both parties are willing to have an independent lab develop the DNA profile and conduct the comparative analysis. Both parties will receive the same reports and underlying data. Once an independent lab develops the DNA profiles, Your Honor, there should be no need for anybody to have access to the sample thereafter. And with an independent lab conducting the comparative analysis, there should be no need for anyone to have to conduct further testing. And finally, Your Honor, once the trial is over, there should be no need for those DNA materials to be on file. And as Mr. Lally said, the legislature has provided a mechanism for obtaining third-party DNA post-conviction. So there's certainly a safety net there if the DNA is needed post-trial. Your Honor, protecting the troopers' DNA samples and profiles through these procedures and protocols poses no violations of the Commonwealth's mandatory discovery obligations. The Commonwealth and the defense would be on equal footing with regard to the troopers' DNA evidence. Each party is free to argue the implication of the results at trial as they see fit. As Your Honor can appreciate, my clients are under no obligation whatsoever to provide their DNA in this matter, but they seek to demonstrate the integrity of their handling of the taillight evidence. In order to provide consent knowingly and voluntarily, they're looking for certainty surrounding who has access to their DNA, how their DNA is handled, and ultimately how their DNA is disposed of. On behalf of my clients, Your Honor, I respectfully request that you issue the protective order proposed by the Commonwealth.
All right. Thank you very much. Mr. Yannetti, it sounds, when I read your opposition, I did not know that there was this much agreement. Did you when you filed it?
I did not, and quite frankly, hearing the argument from both counsel, I think there's even more agreement than I anticipated.
Okay.
Your Honor.
What do you disagree with?
Okay, so our position, Your Honor, is at this point, with regard to the DNA samples versus the DNA profiles.
So where are you in your opposition? What page?
So I'm actually going to the Commonwealth's motion itself with regard to how the DNA samples and profiles will be treated.
Okay.
We did not realize that the Commonwealth was drawing a distinction between the actual samples themselves and the profiles that were generated. It was our understanding that the Commonwealth was seeking to prohibit the defense from having access to either. But I've just
but they're not.
Exactly. I've heard Mr. Lally say today that they will turn over the profile to us. That satisfies us.
Okay, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Since you mentioned Bodie Laboratories, you're the first one that mentions it in the pleadings. How long will it take?
We're not the first ones that mentioned it. The Commonwealth mentioned it in their motion, and we agreed to that.
All right. I don't have that.
Damn, I couldn't jam them up on that
Here,
one.
and it is one of the alternatives that the Commonwealth had. I'm sorry, I can find
Okay,
them.
so we need to find the paper number. All right, but we need to know how quickly it can be done, and we need to see about expediting it.
Typical for Bodie, just because I've recently gone through that with regard to the hair sample.
Right.
It's I think like a 12 to 14 week turnaround without any sort of expedition. So, you know, expediting, I don't know that necessarily that can be cut in half, but it is something that I think can be turned around a little bit quicker than their typical turnaround time.
And Ms. Lundgren, you'll have your clients available, you know, at the drop of a hat to provide this sample? All right, so go ahead, Ms. Giannetti.
Thank you. So, Your Honor, I think the only real conflict at this point, if the Commonwealth is holding to their motion, is their paragraph 7, which states the defendant is not permitted to conduct independent analysis or testing with either Sergeant Buchnick's or Trooper Proctor's DNA samples or profiles. Now, clearly, we won't do that with regard to the samples because we won't have them. We don't need them. But we will have the DNA profiles, Your Honor. And once we do, they, in my view, in my client's view, we should be able to use them for any case-related purpose. We have no interest in, you know, distributing them anywhere or doing anything with them.
Hold on, Ms. Lundgren, I think you should answer this. Why don't you come on up?
Look how pissed he always.
Is there an opposition to
Dude,
that?
she interrupts him all the time, bro.
She tries to throw a wrench in it every time, no
Yeah.
matter what. It's always something.
Yeah.
Always.
That's excellent. You got that on the record.
Yep.
Like, we're only using this for case, nothing else.
I just need you in front of a microphone. There's one right here. Thank you.
She could take this mic if she likes.
No, because we'll be going back and forth, so you should stay there.
There is an opposition, Your Honor. I mean, I think perhaps the Commonwealth can speak to it. I think there's also a strategic decision, a case-related decision. Certainly, we agree with the privacy interests that the troopers are providing their DNA for a specific reason and with regard to a specific item in this case. And they do want to limit that consent. However, that is more, I believe, a case-related and strategic reason that I would also defer to the Commonwealth to speak to.
All right, I'll hear from Mr. Lally afterwards. Go ahead. Not now. I'll hear from Ms. Giannetti to finish.
Right. So there is
Also on the Brian Walsh case too, but I think that's pretty clear cut on that case. But go ahead.
They have Proctor and Buchanan's DNA on file because they are state troopers. It's part of the.
Oh, that's true too.
They take your stuff. They have it.
And fingerprints and all that stuff.
Everything.
But it's amazing the excellent police work that was done in the Brian Walsh case and all the Google searches, all right out there in the Commonwealth statement.
How many
times they mention a Google search in the Commonwealth's statement in Karen's case? You know how many times they mentioned it, Tom?
How many pieces of software did they use in the Brian Walsh case?
Multiple.
Must be accurate.
They only mentioned in the Commonwealth's statement one time of a Google search, and it was supposedly when Karen looked and said, "Google how long it takes someone to die in the cold." Or
I didn't hear that on the 911 call.
Hypothermia, I'm sorry, die of hypothermia.
Yep.
It's amazing. But all that Brian Walsh case, all those Google searches are talked about in it.
Yep.
Amazing.
other evidence in this case where comparative
I will be doing
DNA testing could
on
be
that
done.
soon.
And in addition, Your Honor, I want to make it clear that our investigation has been ongoing and is ongoing to this day. We may come into possession of evidence related to this case, physical evidence, that we may want to do our own comparative testing on. And once those profiles are released, assuming that there's consent and that the Commonwealth comes into possession of a DNA profile, and the defense does as well by Mr. Lally's admission today, that should be evidence that either side can use for any proper purpose that is case related. So we should not be prohibited from either requesting or doing our own comparative analysis from those DNA profiles if it relates to the case.
What do you want to say, Mr. Lally? We're talking hypotheticals here.
We are.
Right.
So what I would say is the only other identified evidence really, or the bulk of it as far as DNA is concerned, concerns Mr. O'Keefe's clothing, which I don't understand what any relevance that would have pertaining to the troopers' DNA profiles. As it pertains to what ifs, as far as any sort of other physical evidence that counsel would come into possession to, the protective order, while somewhat ironclad, is not necessarily cement. So if there's a request for a modification.
He just sidetracked. He went to protective order. But go back for a second. What was he talking about? He was talking about John O'Keefe's clothing in evidence, and then he sidetracked and went to something. He stopped and went somewhere else.
Right. You know, I always noticed too is the young lady that's sitting at the desk, and she just looks so uninterested.
Every single day.
What do you want to say, Mr. Lally? We're talking hypotheticals here.
We are.
Right.
So what I would say is the only other identified evidence really, or the bulk of it as far as DNA is concerned, concerns Mr. O'Keefe's clothing, which I don't understand what any relevance that would have pertaining to the troopers' DNA profiles. As it pertains to what ifs.
Because you want their profiles, because if they run a test on John's clothes and those profiles come on John's clothes, that's what they want to know.
But they shouldn't.
He said, well, I don't know what any relevance that would have to John's clothes. It would have a lot of relevance, because if someone was touching him or their blood got on those clothes, you would want to know.
Proctor's DNA cannot be anywhere on John's clothes because he was never there. He was never there.
Shouldn't be.
He was never at the scene.
As far as any sort of other physical evidence that counsel would come into possession to, the protective order, while somewhat ironclad, is not necessarily cement. So if there's a request for a modification based on subsequent evidence or something like that, I think that's something that the court can obviously entertain at that point. But really, the purpose of this is with reference to that one specific item.
It does make sense that if there is something later, you come before me on it.
Well,
so that's why I asked you if it's hypothetical. If you have an item that you want to test, I think the Commonwealth has every right to know what that item is.
Okay, our position would be that we should be able to conduct our own investigation in private and reveal the results of those investigations, should we desire to. We have a different ethical duty than the Commonwealth. Clearly, if there's any evidence that the Commonwealth possesses that we'd like to do comparative testing on, we have no choice but to notify the Commonwealth and resolve any disputes before this court. But if we come into possession of anything that we believe is related to this case and should be tested, we don't believe that's any business of the Commonwealth to interject in that. We will have the profile at that point. We can do our own testing and then reveal the results of that testing should we desire to.
All right. Does the Commonwealth want to be heard?
No, Your Honor.
All right.
Maybe we have just a quick second, Your Honor.
Yep.
Yeah. My co-counsel brings up a good point, which is after months and months and months of requesting access to the physical evidence, we finally appeared at the Norfolk County DA's office on December 1st of 2023 with our forensic DNA collection expert, and he did swabbings of multiple pieces of evidence. So we do have those in our possession.
All right. I had no idea what you were talking about when you were saying hypothetically.
Well, there are two separate issues. There are the items that we've swabbed that we should be able to test, and if we have the DNA profiles of these troopers, there should be nothing prohibiting us from testing them. And by the way, the Commonwealth has the ability to do the exact same testing on their own. And then if there's any other evidence, I still maintain that we should be able to do comparative testing on that as well.
All right. Let's get the samples going. Let's do that, and I'll figure out the rest of this, but let's get the, who do you have in mind for an independent collector?
Your Honor, I don't have anyone specific in mind, but, you know, most local police departments have at least someone who is a, you know, detective who is a certified collector. Is
there someone the defendant, the two of you work out something?
I don't have any issue with working out something with Mr. Lally.
All right, so let's do it today.
That sounds good.
All right, and Ms. Lundgren, you'll make your witnesses available immediately?
Yes, Your Honor, but I just, for sake of clarification, just trying to understand, and as Mr. Lally said, they have not provided their consent yet. They are waiting to hear what the boundaries of the proposed protective order will be in order to provide that, you know, knowing and voluntary consent.
Okay.
So, I mean, we could certainly potentially do the samples and hold them in abeyance and not release them if the court was willing to have them destroyed should the troopers decide not to provide consent based on the bounds of the protective order. But certainly, I think they do need to know what those terms are before moving forward.
All right, I need to look at this. I'll do it as quickly as I can. All right, is that it on this?
Yes, Your Honor.
On this
All right.
motion, yes.
All right. So the third and the fourth motion are sort of in their own category. So the third motion is, it's interesting in that I received the opposition, or the opposition to motion for protective order was filed before the motion for protective order, as I had it in the docket. Who's arguing this for the defendant?
This is the protective order regarding the letters, Your Honor?
Yes.
I will be arguing.
All right, so what I can say, Mr. Yannetti, is that it appears that you served counsel for the Commonwealth with this motion, but you did not serve the U.S. Attorney's Office. So the U.S. Attorney's Office has a right to be heard on this order, on this proposal that you have. So I need them here. I need them served. So you can serve them and we'll get a date.
That's fine, Your Honor.
All right, and we'll do it as soon as possible. I do not want to change the trial date in this case. This case will go to trial on March 12th.
Thank you, Jamie.
And the fourth
Thank you.
motion, where I said the third and the fourth are sort of in the same category, the Commonwealth's motion for records from Boston Magazine. That needs to be appropriately served and have someone here from Boston Magazine if they oppose it.
Yes.
So I'd like to do this as soon as possible. And given our trial schedule
thank you,
and the
Jamie.
fact that I intend
Thanks
that
for
we
the
try
other
this
good-
case
thank
in
you.
March, like everybody served for a hearing here on January 18th at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It's a Thursday afternoon. So it's just
Thank you,
about
Jamie.
2 weeks. Should give you enough time if you serve these people today to get them here. We can do it via Zoom where it's
Your Honor,
discrete issues, yes.
we're in trial on January 18th. It's a short trial. Is there any other day that might work for the court?
I don't see any time that we can.
Is the 16th at all possible?
No.
No, no,
Oh, that's right on the back of the holiday, isn't it?
We're both supposed,
I understand that. No, it's not available. We start a trial Monday.
we're both supposed to be in trial that day.
All right, so you can do it via Zoom, or Mr. Yannetti can do it.
I can certainly do it. There's no chance of the 23rd, Your Honor?
No, there's no chance that week.
Okay.
If they had been served.
Actually, this technically is not the last hearing because the last hearing. Oh, thank you for tonight. Happy Hump Day, all. Yes, thank you, Jamie. I appreciate it because the Zoom. The Zoom is the next one, the federal hearing, and he goes, "We have the 8 letters, we're using them, we know them." Yeah, yeah. So this actually technically is not. This is the last courtroom hearing, but they did have the Zoom hearing, and that hearing was fucking great. I mean, Yannetti just comes out and drops mega bombs, mega bombs. We're gonna finish up here really quick. Go ahead. Thanks, Carrie, for the 5. I appreciate it. Go ahead, Tom.
Tomorrow's gonna be the same way. I think it's gonna be just like this, back and forth. Give me this when you can have that. I need this. Where's that? Where the phone records?
Yeah, Suzanne, thank you so much for the 5. I appreciate the support. Where can I hear the and I listened to that Zoom hearing? It's on. I think it's on the Canton community page. It should be on there. Canton TV community page. If not, you can just check it out. I did a live of it on my channel. You can just watch that. I don't talk through it. We just listen. But let's finish this up and then we'll have our final thoughts.
We would.
Yeah, we'll have pretrial motions in limine. I don't know if they would.
Okay, but everything else. So,
But in
okay.
terms of constitutional issues.
So file them by the end of today. And if we can hear them on that date, we'll do that on the 18th.
Right. And that would, depend on Mr. Lally's ability to respond, et cetera, which, I understand he may need some time, but they will be filed today.
Okay. All right. Thank you all.
Your Honor, there's several I apologize. Your Honor, there's several housekeeping matters I wanted to address with the court.
Right here.
In regards to the motions to
Right
dismiss
here.
Mr. Yannetti.
Right here. I love that this got on the record. Oh, I love it.
My brother just discussed.
Elizabeth Little coming through.
We do have a motion to dismiss the indictments in this case, and I wanted to lodge the grand jury minutes with the court. They are very voluminous. I wanted to ask the court's guidance on how you would prefer to receive those.
So when that happens, we typically get them on a flash drive, as well as Jimmy, how are they filed with you?
Counsel have filed by email and then
Jim.
followed up with the grand jury minutes.
Jim.
So they can do it by a thumb drive.
All right. So a thumb drive, but get a separate one for
We'll
me.
mail that to you so that you'll have a hard copy, the thumb drive. The other housekeeping issue I wanted to address with the court, Your Honor, is, as you know, the court has ordered the Verizon records relating to Jennifer McCabe, as well as the Google Nest records. We were informed by the clerk's office those were supposed to be produced to the court on December 15th. My understanding is you guys have not received anything, and I wanted to follow up on that because that obviously is evidence that we hope
we
to have
kind
in
of need
advance
that.
of trial.
All right. So Mr. Clerk, is your office call or is counsel call?
I've never.
Yeah. So typically defense counsel calls and says there's a court order. Where are these records?
And Karen's like,
I emailed the clerk's office and they said that they haven't received anything yet. And so that's why I wanted.
Right. So call Verizon and
Karen's like, what the
call,
fuck, we
who's the
did.
other record holder?
Google Nest.
Contact the record holder and say there's a court order. Where are these records?
Okay. But
Okay.
you all have not received anything.
I don't know. Jim.
Have you
received
texting
them?
again? Me?
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, get up and go do something. Yes, it's Jim with the B on the end. Jim. I love now everybody's adopting that. You got to add the B on the end though. It's Jim. So they're in sidebar right now, right? That's what this is. Yeah. Someone said they actually heard what was going on in sidebar. No, you got to add the B on the end. Jim. Can you imagine what she's thinking there right now, Tom? Like, what the fuck?
And she, of all people, made sure the paperwork got in, and she knows. You see, Karen, like she goes, "We did."
Yeah, she's so aggravated right now.
Yep.
We'll speed up a little bit.
Last thing, just with regard.
Just want to go back here.
can't read. Free Turtle Boy.
That's great. It's so good.
That's it.
Your Honor, if I may, just one last thing, just with regard to the motion to dismiss, as far as does the court want the exhibits that were presented to the grand jury in addition to the minutes, or just the minutes?
Yes, I assume where you say it's so voluminous, it's the exhibits as well, Ms. Little?
I can produce.
You have to stand in Massachusetts. Thank you.
I can produce the evidence as well.
Okay. All right, so everything.
And I don't have a problem providing that to the court as well. I don't want to duplicate matters, but if it's easier, I can do it. It's fine.
So those would.
I would think someone asked what the beeping is. Maybe the beeping is to indicate that they're off in sidebar for the record, so that because we're recording everything, so when they step away, they know that they're at a sidebar. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer or someone, but that would probably indicate to me. Am I right on that, Tom? You think I am?
Pretty correct on that. It kind of mutes out the microphones.
Right. And then it just lets them know on the recording that they're at sidebar because everything's being recorded. All right, we're going to finish this up in about another minute, and then we'll give a final thought.
Would be provided under seal, Your Honor.
Of course, they're grand jury minutes.
Correct. With regard to the motion to dismiss, the basis of which is the grand jury presentation. The separate motion.
Is it McCarthy or Odell?
Both. With regard to the second motion for sanctions, Your Honor, the letters that were the issue of the protective order that the Commonwealth moved for that we've now put off, those will be part of the quote unquote evidence with regard to the motion for sanctions. It's our position, obviously, that those are not exempt from public disclosure. However,
I'm going to keep them exempt until we hear from the U.S. Attorney's Office.
That's why I raised the issue, Your Honor. I just wanted.
Was that your suggestion as well, so we could get moving with this motion to dismiss?
Of course. Thank you.
Very angry.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right. All right, Tom.
All right, man.
Final thoughts. What do you think? What do you think tomorrow? Give me your final thought and kind of let everybody know your plan for tomorrow. I'll be out there.
You know where I'll be. I'll be out. I'll be streaming live. You'll be hearing a lot about me tomorrow. Some project I'm working on, so you'll hear about that. I think tomorrow you're going to hear the same of what we just heard right there. Evidence. They don't have the cell phone records yet. I'm not sure they did the DNA testing yet. So there's some housekeeping housekeeping evidence stuff that's still got to be done. So I think that's what's going to get, like somewhat get straightened out tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree. As far as my plan, I'm going to head in. I may stream on the way in. So if anybody wants to pop in on the ride in, obviously I'll be out there. I'm going to shoot some video while I'm there. And then I am going to go in and sit in court tomorrow. And then hopefully I can get out before Karen and her team walks out, so I can get some video of them coming out. I'll get video of them going in and hopefully getting them out. And then I'll come back and do another montage like I normally do. And we'll go from there. But, I'll be there tomorrow. Going to probably be at Aiden's hearing on Friday. So I'll be out the courthouse then. Tom, you're not going to be there on Friday, right?
Negative.
No. All right. I'll be there Friday. Maybe I'll just live stream on Friday, and we'll go from there. So I want to thank Tom for hanging out tonight and joining me on this kind of review and giving some thoughts as to what's going to happen tomorrow. Again, use your resources, use the Facebook group, because a lot of stuff is going to get posted probably tomorrow. If this gets called off, you'll know not to go out to the courthouse. So don't get, but I think that I'm just saying in the sense of if Bev reads off and signs off and delays it, it could get delayed tomorrow. We don't know. But, 2 o'clock, I think some of the meetups are going to start happening about 12 out there tomorrow. I'll be there between 12 and 1. It's going to be cold, so dress warm tomorrow. We'll see everybody there. Be peaceful. Don't give in to the other side if they show up.
Peaceful,
right.
Peaceful. That's why we're there. We do no... We don't any help. We help nobody if we're, you know,
Right.
yeah, no, it doesn't work. We don't do
Wear
that.
all your support gear, bring your signs. Don't fall into the trap of the other side with negativity.
Nope.
Treat everybody well, treat everybody in a positive way. Don't give any shit to the police officers that were there. The last couple of court hearings have been amazing. Everybody's been great. Everybody's been kind. No one has started any trouble. You know, that's what we want. Just peaceful protest, and be out there in numbers if you can make it, please, and dress warm because it's going to be really cold tomorrow.
No
And
doubt.
I want to also thank Dave from Unsafe Spaces for coming over here and hanging out with us for a little while. It was great to have him over here. I've done a stream on his channel. I think it's the second time he's been over here, and I appreciate that. And go over and make sure to subscribe to his channel as well, and TomCPU as well. And I think that's it. I think we're going to play out the we'll play the Karen Reed intro outro tonight. We'll give everybody the long one. All right, everybody, have a great night. Thank you for joining us. And let me get a couple of these in real quick. Hang on.
It makes absolutely no sense. That is the Commonwealth grasping at straws. If it walks like a duck and talks like a duck, it's a duck.
We have the 8 letters. We've seen them. We've read them. We are using them. The genie cannot be put back in the bottle.
Good night. Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Said it
Be
feels
well.
we're the only ones fighting for the truth of what happened to John O'Keefe. And me and my family and my attorneys and my team have marshaled every resource to get to the truth. It just feels like no one else wants it.
And Karen, just to be clear, you didn't do it.
We know who did it, Steve. We know. And we know who spearheaded this cover-up. You all know.
Yes, we do. And no, she didn't do it. No, she didn't do it. This is an innocent woman. She didn't do it.
I tried to save his life. I tried to save his life at 6 in the morning. I was covered in his blood. I was the only one trying to save his life.
Why'd you admit to it?
She didn't admit to it. She didn't admit to anything close to that. Nothing close to that. And you should know that.
That was like 3 or 4 times. She said it's
No, she didn't.
That's not true.
She asked a question.
It makes absolutely no sense. That is the Commonwealth grasping at straws. If it walks like a duck and talks like a duck, it's a duck.
We have the 8 letters. We've seen them. We've read them. We are using them. The genie cannot be put back in the bottle.
Yeah, LTL true crime, we going deep in the dark. Yeah, peeling back the layers, expose the hidden mark. From the streets to the alleys where the secrets lie, getting into minds of the wicked, no alibi. LTL true crime, unraveling the web of evil. No stone left unturned, we dive into the pond. Yeah, we digging up the dirt, bringing justice to the crime. LTL true crime, unveiling dark realities every time. Yeah, LTL true crime, we going deep in the dark. Peeling back the layers, expose the hidden mark. From the streets to the alleys where the secrets lie, getting into minds of the wicked, no alibi. Never get done, and the wicked are folks. I see a joke and I go. We go get live in the shine, but then I'm not talking about it, ain't that so? Put the good pussy in your bone. No intuition lie. No intuition low. We better get done, never get done, and the wicked are folks. I break down true crime, I'm done with dark realities every time. This is I break down true crime, I'm done with dark realities every time. Yeah, LTL true crime, we going deep in the dark. Yeah.